of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is the board workshop being held on November the 17th, 2020. We have a quorum with all members present except for Ms. Bronzell. We will review the agenda items for the regular meeting being held on November 19th, 2020. Dr. Randall?
Madam President, I know we've got quite a bit in front of you all tonight, so we'll go ahead and get started. The first agenda item is that the Board of Trustees approve the 2021-22 student course selection catalog.
I wanted to ask a question on this. I think the pre-advanced placement, the College Board pre-AP, that's something new?
No.
Is that?
So that is not new, but what is new is for the Algebra 1, we're working with College Board and their curriculum for our pre-AP courses in that area.
Oh, it's just under, okay, it's under the overview. It looks new. Okay, got
But
it.
that's just updated from previous verbiage, but it's not new.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I have one question. Chuck, I have one question. On the CDA, on page 62, this course requires employment to allow students to work in the early learning arena. With COVID, is this something that you go out and solicit with the business people, or are the students having to go out and do this on their own?
No, we have partnerships. We do it both ways, actually, where we have some partnerships with our classrooms and teachers who have partnerships with early learning centers. And then sometimes students, they'll go out on their own and find a place of employment in that area as well.
Okay, with COVID right now, is that, are you seeing any problems with that?
There's been some situations where that has been a difficulty, not just in the CDA, but in some of the other practicum areas. And so TEA has allowed us to have students that are in practicum areas work on different types of reports that they would still be doing, or projects, I should say, working on those projects to cover those objectives in the courses until they're able to find a place of employment. But it's nothing that has stopped our students from being successful in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
The next item, we ask the board to approve lions as the mascot and black, silver, and white as the school colors for Dr. Thomas E. Randall High School.
Dr. Randall, how do you feel about that?
I'm good.
You like that?
The
Well, the kids,
Namesake like that.
the kids made the decision, so.
All right.
All right.
I love it.
The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve District Instructional Materials Adoption Committee members as submitted, and you have a correction or a corrected list where a person was added at your table. They were inadvertently left off earlier.
And from what I understand, there's a part of this agenda item that says the public will be allowed to inspect the books, and from what I understand, those items will be placed online for parents and others to inspect. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are links. TEA has links for all of the materials to be accessed digitally. And so once the state board approves the list and posts the final draft on Friday, we'll make those links available to the public and share the information. So they also have an opportunity to provide comments in a form back to us for the committee.
I was wondering how that was going to work with all the COVID restrictions on campuses right now.
Right, and we will have physical copies of all the samples on campuses. If in the spring something changes and some sort of miracle happens and we can bring people back in, we will do that, but we'll handle everything else virtually for now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to ratify financial and investment reports as presented. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees consider approval of budget amendment request. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to consider approval of revisions to Lamar CISD Voluntary Section 403 Plan Adoption Agreement and authorize the Board President to execute. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to consider approval of a blanket purchase agreement with Han Company, LLC, and authorize the Board President to execute the agreement. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees ratify donations to the district. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve on second reading of the Policy Localized Policy Manual Update 115. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve the deductive change order in the amount of $51,612 and final payment of $16,933.40 to Dramala Construction for the construction of GMP number 1 for Terry High School, and authorize the Board President to sign the change order.
Dr. Andrew, you skipped page 42.
Thank you. Oh, that the Board of Trustees, they both look the same, so that's, I apologize. That the Board of Trustees approve on first reading DNA local performance appraisal evaluation of teachers, and this will come back next month for board approval.
And this one is, I'm sorry.
This is the one where we are asking the board to waive the appraisal process from now until the end of the year, where, as well as walkthroughs, so that this is one of those things that have just come off the plate of teachers as well as administrators. You waived it in the spring of this past year, if you remember, when COVID hit. Now we feel like this is another opportunity to take and give staff an opportunity to kind of breathe, for lack of a better term. Did I get that right?
Is this also for brand-new teachers, or?
No, ma'am, we're asking to, we currently have teacher waivers in place for our appraisal system prior to COVID. We had a waiver structure that every so often teachers were appraised and then they weren't. We're asking to expand those waiver options for anybody who is not new to the district.
Okay.
So a teacher new to the district would be observed this year, but anyone who is a veteran teacher and meets the criteria of sufficient performance would not be observed.
So second year, aren't they still
They are, but that's what we're expanding to include, those that
Okay.
are in their second
Okay.
year, as long as their performance was
That's good.
proficient.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the staff was to read that they were just holding their breath, because we're asking you to approve this on first reading, so that it can go into effect. So on Thursday, when you approve this, it actually will go into effect right after that.
So we're giving them an early Christmas present.
And this is only for this year.
Just for COVID.
Yes,
For
ma'am.
this year.
So they'll come back to us next year
That's correct.
if there's a problem.
I had just the last line in there, it said teachers may decline the waiver option.
They can. Mhm.
You would have some that would do that?
We would. Some have actually, they may have already had observations or for whatever reason. They've always had to approve of their waiver in writing, so they've always had to agree to it. But they did ask if we could leave an option in there
Okay.
to keep their appraisal in place if they want.
And does that help the teacher if that's on their record of having been appraised?
It's really, appraisal waivers are a common practice in school districts, so I would say it's not, it's kind of 6 one, half dozen of another. Districts are familiar with teachers not being appraised every year. So a gap in their appraisals would not surprise anyone.
Gotcha.
It doesn't indicate anything negative, it indicates they were on a waiver.
Thank you.
Okay, and I am wide awake now. I do apologize for that. That was really important, so thank you for catching me on that. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve the deductive change order in the amount of $3,464 and final payment of $20,849.65 to Dramala Construction for the construction of GMP number 2 for Terry High School.
I have a question. So for this one and the previous Dramala, what was our total savings on that? So we're saving on each of these, correct?
Yes, ma'am, we are. We had a total of 3 guaranteed maximum prices for Terry and George Junior High School. The first GMP was for the construction of the new bleachers. They had a guaranteed maximum price. They came in under that by $51,612. They're done with that work. The second one was the resurfacing of the student parking lot at Terry High School, and they came in under $3,464 from their original price. So we have saved money on both of those. And they're currently working on GMP3, which is extensive renovation work of the high school and some additions at both Terry and George Junior.
Thank you. I just think it's always good to highlight it when we're saving money.
We're saving money, yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve Estes McClure and Associates as commissioning agents for Maxine Phelan Elementary School in the amount of $41,400. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve Terracon for the geotechnical study for Maxine Phelan Elementary in the amount of $11,900. The next item, we ask the board to approve Traffic Engineers, Inc. for the traffic study at Maxine Phelan Elementary School in the amount of $18,000.
And just to clarify, this school is gonna be in the Veranda subdivision, is that correct?
That's
Or-
correct.
In the first entrance or the second? Because there's two entrances in there.
Well, it'll be off of the new entrance that they're building now.
Okay,
Close to where the old golf course used to be.
okay, okay.
The next item, that was the traffic study one, right? Was that
Yes.
okay? The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve Winning Way Services for a Texas Accessibility Standards Review and Inspection for Maxine Phelan Elementary School in the amount of $2,275. The next item, we ask the Board of Trustees to approve Calusa Incorporated for professional topography, surveying, and planning services in the amount of $21,925. The next item, we will actually be addressing that. And this is the item where the board will approve whoever they select from interviews tonight to provide consulting services to assist the Board of Trustees in the selection of the next superintendent to serve Lamar CISD. The next item, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve the purchase of Destiny Resource Management, complete addition and implementation services for Follett School Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $78,970.30.
I have a couple questions on that. Mr. Jacobs. So since March, we've had a lot of our equipment checked out by students and others.
Yes, sir.
How is that equipment tracked?
Right now, the campuses are tracking that on their own, and most of that is being done through the Destiny Library Management System.
Is it not adequate?
No, sir, it's not. There's a lot of things that are different between a library management system and an asset management system. Library management systems are tied to MARC records, which is how books are tracked, and it doesn't allow for tracking of other types of assets like technology. The other thing is that the library management system doesn't allow for sharing of books or resources between campuses, but the resource management system does, and that's really important for us with technology items, because we'll be transferring them between campuses. And also the reporting out of the library management system, because only librarians do and really should have access to the library management system. Technology services doesn't, so we can't get reports out of that either. So they're really, even though they're both Follett applications, they're very purpose-built and for very different purposes. They might seem similar, but they're very much not.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of a laptop closed, looking like a book. Okay, so help me visualize this. kid takes a book out of the library, and there's a system that tracks that, and we know if he turns that book back in or not.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So help me understand why that's not adequate for a laptop or an iPad.
And I'm not an expert on libraries, but I asked some of our librarians, and MARC records, which is how the library management system tracks assets, is a specific way that library books are coded and stored. So I'm not claiming to be the expert, but I did anticipate this question and got information from librarians. So I'm doing my best to speak librarian here. Other assets don't have the same type of MARC records, MARC, M-A-R-C, and that's how information is stored for books. The library management system is not designed to store other, all these things are called resources, whether it's a book or a laptop or whatever. So the library management system, thank you, Dr. Jones, who's over our librarians. He's going to come and rescue me on the MARC records issue here.
So the biggest difference is the type of catalog that each system is. So the library system catalog is specific to that campus, and it's designed for its resources. We have laptops that might move from one campus to another campus, but that's not the way the library system is designed. It's, I own these resources, and so it stays at this location. The asset management tool is designed to be a large central database for the entire district. So if I have a laptop here that now gets reassigned to this other location, it just gets reassigned inside of that large central database. So what David was saying was correct. The Destiny Management Library System is designed for MARC records at a single location. An asset management tool is designed for broad, district-wide reassignment. Barcodes can move from campus to campus, that type of idea.
So I'm trying to understand. So it's $78,000 to get started. It's $39,000 a year on an ongoing basis. So I'm trying to process this as far as we have so many contracts with technology, with our camera systems, with our purchasing the televisions that are in all the classrooms and the projectors and everything else. So we're going to add another layer on top of it. So I'm trying to understand. So let's say you have 25 laptops and you check them out to Carter Elementary. So Carter Elementary could take those and catalog those the same way they do a library book.
Not very efficiently.
Not very efficient.
No, because as Dr. Jones and I were trying to explain, and MARC records is what the library management system is based on. A true resource management system is based on a variety of things. We could have everything from a single, it's called a 1D or one dimension standard looking UPC barcode, to a 2D, which Dell recently went to, which looks like a QR code, but it's a two-dimensional code, to all sorts of variety of things. Even things like every Dell laptop has what's called a service tag. We will record, because that's how Dell checks warranties and things. So there's a lot of different ways we could track assets just in technology, and there's things beyond that a library system is so purpose-built for library books. And like Dr. Jones and I were explaining, it's the library system, while it's one system, each librarian manages their own campus, and we don't do transfers between technology items or whatever else we may eventually use the system for, but for now it's going to be a lot of technology. Those will transfer from campus to campus.
So at any moment, you could say where every laptop is in the school by looking up, you'd be able, with this new system, to know where everything is.
We would know to whom it was checked out.
Okay.
Yes.
Across the district.
Yes. And the need for this occurred before COVID. And a lot of it is driven by the instructional laptop that we provide to every teacher in the district. And teachers, as you know, change campuses often. And that's why a system like this is needed as well. COVID sped up the timeline of the need for this.
And if the board would make one correction in your book where it says in the impact rationale, $38,817.35, that needs to read $33,817.35.
Dr. Jones, do you know how much the district pays annually for the library software?
Not off the top of my head.
$48,100.
But David does.
I thought some questions like that might come up. So the library management system is $48,100 a year.
So, to me, it sounds like the system that we're getting is just a beefed up version of the library management system, in that the library management system allows you to track books at one location. But the system that we're getting would be resource management that would allow you to do it throughout the entire district, campus to campus. Would we be able to get rid of the library system and track books within the resource management system that you're proposing today?
No, sir. It goes back to the way these systems were designed, and it's not just something unique to Follett, for example. We looked at another application called TipWeb, which we use to manage textbooks in the district, and TipWeb IT, which was our technology asset management system. It's the same kind of thing. Library systems are so unique to the way they catalog and manage things that they're very different in the way that they're similar technology, yes. They're similar databases and things like that, but they don't overlap.
And to clarify that, the example there is what David was talking about of the MARC records. That MARC records it's a library term, but there are very specific records of publisher, publishing date, editions, things like that gets imported into the library management system, whereas the asset management tool doesn't track that type of information. But it can import different information that the library management system isn't designed to import, because the library management system is designed for library-specific items, whereas an asset management system is designed for more things like what is being proposed.
But in the asset management system, you'd still know like what kind of computer, what kind of chip is in there, what kind of operating system's on it, those kind of things.
You could import, I don't know how granular it could get into, but yes, it is designed to import that type of data, whereas right now there is no way to import that type of data into the library management system because it's not designed for those type of records.
MARC record data, that book has the same MARC record information whether it's in Lamar CISD or any other district or a public library. How we catalog technology is up to us, because it doesn't matter. A computer or a mouse or whatever it's going to be, we catalog that however we want, and within that, it's called a resource. Each computer is a resource. We can catalog all sorts of different things. Certainly the serial number, the make and model. We can catalog things like the funding source under which it was purchased, in case we needed to track that at a later date. There's so many different kinds of things that would be unique to Lamar that is not built into a library system.
Will that make it easier whenever the computers or laptops and everything are replaced? Would this system be easier to add a button, say this is how many we need?
Absolutely. Now, I don't want to imply that we don't have that information already. We have it in a much more technical database, but it's not as readily tied to the user. So it would make it much easier to identify where those devices are.
Madam President, if the board has some additional in-depth conversation that they want to have by this, it certainly can be done on Thursday. We have the other consultants in line here, and we kind of got off a little bit on our time when we scheduled the agenda. So, because the technical folks will go on and on and on. And so,
Right.
Trying not to.
Any more questions? I guess it's over time.
And if you have any additional ones, we can certainly touch base between now and Thursday, but we can also revisit this again on Thursday.
Okay.
All right, and with the change that I indicated just a couple of minutes ago, all the agenda items, the information items are items that if you certainly have questions, we can respond to them on Thursday as well. The COVID update will be presented on Thursday anyway, and we have a presentation for you. All right, the next item on the agenda is actually, we ask that the Board of Trustees adopt the order canvassing returns and declaring results of schoolhouse bond election number of November 3rd, 2020 as presented, and that,
I just wanted to let you know there is no public comment.
Okay, thank
Be
you.
skipper.
All right.
thank you.
We need to start highlighting it.
So now, you would have to have a motion and a second for, the order canvassing returns.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll
Ms.
second it.
Kinzinger makes a motion. Ms. Kaminsky seconds the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Now, we're voting to accept this? What are we exactly voting on here?
When you're canvassing the election, these are the final results, and basically you are officially accepting the results.
Here at the workshop and not at the meeting?
Yes, because today is the last day that you can do it.
Oh.
And therefore, the law requires you to canvass within a certain date, and today is the date, and we chose this date because you are already having a board meeting, and that's why it's listed as an action item in your agenda.
Gotcha.
So I think we're all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right.
Now, so at this, okay, so at this time, we will hear presentations from 3 superintendent search firms. 2 will be in person and 1 will be virtual. At the conclusion of each presentation, the board will have an opportunity to ask questions. You received a scoring sheet that will need to be turned into Mr. Morris this evening or by tomorrow morning. The first firm is TASB. Please begin your presentation.
Good evening.
Hi.
Are y'all ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you for having us. My name is Marian Strauss, and I'm with the Texas Association of School Boards, the Executive Search Services Division. And we're thrilled to be here. I know this is a daunting task. You've been very fortunate to have the stability that you've had. Most of you have probably never been through a superintendent search, so I know it is an overwhelming task. But TASB has been doing searches longer than most search firms. We've been doing searches since 1984. Our team is comprised of who you saw in the packet, but we're all former superintendents. And I spent 24 years in the superintendency, and I've been with TASB doing searches now for 7 years. So I think the thing that I want, because you're going to hear some great presentations tonight, and I will tell you, I think our reputation is what we stand on. We've done searches all sizes throughout the state of Texas, and we take that very seriously to make sure that you find the right fit. It's not us placing them, it's us assisting you, finding the person that can step into those shoes and move the district forward. You have a lot of great things going on here, and congratulations on passing the bond issue. And it's going to take someone that has a very specific skill set to come in and fill this position. So with that, TASB is going to represent you, the board, not the candidates themselves. And again, this is going to be the most important decision that you've probably made in your tenure on the board. We believe that you should be in charge. We will be there to assist. We have a process that we know works. It's been working for a very long time. But we will be there to guide and direct and assist you. But this is your superintendent. And so we're going to help you select those that meet the criteria that you come up with as far as what the qualifications and characteristics are. Then we're going to go out and find those candidates and help recruit those candidates to your district. This will be a national search. All of our sister organizations, TASB's sister organizations, pick up our searches, and so it will be a national search automatically. And so I think that's an important part of it too. Whether you're interested in out of state or not, you will have those candidates. We're going to, with TASB, you have our entire team, not just executive search services. You're going to have our legal division, our HR division is going to work with us to give you the most current salary and benefits for a district this size. And then we have our field service agents who call on every school district at least once a quarter that assist us. And we know the superintendents. We're the only firm that actually steps foot in every superintendent's office about once a quarter and visits with those people and the people that are also up and coming aspiring superintendents. So our application process is electronic. You will receive everything electronically. Again, we're going to advertise both in-state and nationally. And then we help your administrative team and your the team that you have that will be helping with the search. We will help them so as to not put extra work on anybody here in the district. We provide all of the information that they need to post all the postings for all the board meetings. And we also help with anything that they need here in the district. We are going to check references, but most of the references we check are the ones that are not listed. And we do that through our TASB network with our field service and everyone else that is involved in the search itself. We're not going away after the search is over. Those of you that come to SLI or convention or any of the trainings that you attend, you will always see our team there. We don't go away. We're always going to be there to assist and help you in any way that we possibly can. We're going to involve your community. We have a web-based survey that we put up at the very beginning, and it allows for anyone in the community to go in and answer the survey. At the end of the time that it's posted, we send you a report that will give you everything that everyone that's responded has listed. And again, they will identify themselves as either community member, board member, faculty, staff, and even students can participate. And then you will get the entire report before we come in to help you select those that you're going to interview. So that is a very big, important piece. We usually come into the district and meet with all of the different groups in person as well. We haven't been able to do that since March, but we're hoping that's something that we will be able to do in the near future again, is sit down with whatever groups you think is important. I know when we did Friendswood, we met with just about every organization, club, a lot of the students. We met with student groups and gathered information in person as well as the online surveys. So I think that's another thing that's very important. We believe that your search should be confidential. We ask all of our boards to sign a confidentiality oath. And what it says is that you will not divulge any information about any of the applicants until you name your lone finalist, and that would be the only one that you would talk about. We want the very best candidates for your position, and everyone has a job that they have to go back to in most cases, and so we think it's important to keep it confidential, and we know that we get the best applicant pool when it is confidential. So we're going to help you develop your questioning. We have a bank of about 95 questions that we will help when you're ready. when we come in and help you narrow your field down to the 6 or so that you're going to interview, we will also contact all of those and contact all of those that were not selected. We believe in 2 interviews. The first one is very formal. The second one is with the spouse. After you bring 3 back for a second round interview, then that one is the candidate and the spouse. All of these are things that you can tweak as a board. Every search that we do changes in one way or another. And so if you decide that that's not important to you, then we tweak the whole process. We believe you should see all of the candidates. However, if you decide that you only want to see the group that has superintendent experience or deputy superintendent and superintendent experience, then we can do that for you. Otherwise, we send electronically all of the applications about 6 or 7 days before we come in to assist you with getting to the top 6 in your group. So you would receive all of the applications. They're grouped for you so that all the sitting superintendents are first, the deputy superintendents are second, and then so on. So it's fairly easy. It's a daunting process, but it's fairly easy for you to go through all of the information. Again, we're going to award 3 hours of board credit for that meeting, and then also we have a transition session after you select your superintendent. Our group of LTS, probably Kay Douglas, will come in and lead you through what we call our transition session, and it is part of our search process. And what will happen is within the first 90 days, you will sit down with your new superintendent and go through a goal-setting process. What are the things that are important to you in the first 3 months? What are the things that are important to you in the first 6 months? And then what are you going to evaluate that person on after the first year? And those things are important to sit down and talk about. We all get really busy doing the work, and it's become a very successful part of the search process, just having people actually sit down and go through that process at the very beginning. Again, Kay Douglas or more, someone from LTS comes in and does that, but it is part of the search and part of the cost of the search. So all of our price is competitive. It's based on your ADA. We have a 2-year guarantee. If your superintendent leaves for any reason other than a family emergency, we're going to come in and conduct the search again. So again, we're going to represent your best interest, and I know you're going to hear 2 other presentations. I just urge you to call references before you make a selection. We've done several fast growth districts recently, and I think that our reputation stands out if you have the time to do that. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Who would like to start?
Just one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. On the applications, about how many is an average that we should expect?
I would say here you're probably going to have between 60 and 75, and it could be more than that. Now, will all of them be the quality that you're looking for? No, but you will have at least 20 to 30 that will have you take a really close look at them and then decide, you know, who actually fits your criteria best. Another point is if you have internal candidates, they are treated exactly the same with us. They fill out all of the required documentation that are part of our process, and then they're presented to you exactly the same way. And so it becomes they're on an equal playing field, and boards hire internal candidates often, but when they do, they know that they've vetted everyone out there, and it's the very best person for the job. And And we think that's a very strong thing to send to your community, to tell your community that you've gone out, you've done a nationwide search, and this internal candidate has every skill that you were looking for. And I think it speaks volumes to your community.
Excuse me. So the list that you're sending is before we have actually met and made our criteria?
No, we would do that earlier.
So I just didn't know if that weeded some of those out, or did you
Well,
leave
it
them all
can.
in?
It can. And again, we believe that it's best to see all the candidates. However, in a district this size, very often the board will say, we really want you to bring our top 20, and we will do that. But it's entirely up to you. Again, it's your search. So if you want us to bring the top after we sit down with you and develop the criteria, we will be happy to do that. Otherwise, you would see everyone that has applied.
I have a
I think that
couple.
gets confusing.
You mentioned a 2-year guarantee. Can you talk about that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Sure. If your superintendent leaves for any reason, then we would come back and do the search again at no cost, at no fee, just travel and expenses. Now, our fee is all inclusive. There is no extra added cost at the end of the search that are surprises. We include all of our travel, the advertising, all of the advertisement. The only two things that are not included is when you interview your candidates and you invite 3 or however many back, it is customary, and 100% of our boards pay for their expenses. When they come originally for the first interview, it's on them, but when you invite them back, then it's customary for you to pay the expenses. The other thing is, if you do a site visit, if you select someone, a sitting superintendent, and you would like to go visit their district, we set that up, but that is also on the district's expense. Everything else is included in our fee.
How would you work with, if we were to set up a committee, and I don't know, this is my first time doing this. So if we were to set up a committee of a community, business owners and parents and different people, how would you work with that committee? Let's say you got the 60 applicants, and we said, well, we just want the 20, but we want this other committee to whittle it down. Is that something that would?
Well,
or what would be a role of a committee?
Of a
like that?
committee, okay. What we would do with a committee, and it could be more than one committee, or it could be a committee that you develop. We would sit down with them at the very beginning stages and let them develop some criteria and qualifications that they believe are important before we sit down with you, so that we can say, here's what the committee thought. And so let's get our list, let's really hone in on what it is that we're looking for. We have this question often about, can we have a committee screen the applicants? And I will tell you we have never done that, and I think it's probably something that you'd really want to consider before you did it. And this is the reason why. You 7, one of your statute things that you are to do statutorily is to hire and fire the superintendent. And while a committee can make great recommendations about the characteristics, you really don't want them to say, we believe this person is the best, or this person, because you all may not. You may think that someone else is, and you've already turned some people off to that person. Plus, this is a confidential search, and so our applicants trust us to keep it confidential. And when you involve a committee, we would have to notify them and let them know that there will be more people than just the board involved. And I will tell you, you'll probably lose some really, really good applicants, no matter who does it. If you involve outside people, you'd probably lose some excellent applicants. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
So the outside people are more for us to see what some of our community wants for criteria them
Exactly.
for actually doing any kind of vetting for us.
Any kind of screening, exactly.
Did you have something?
You go ahead.
I'll go last, go ahead.
Oh, okay. On the average, we've been blessed having Dr. Randall as long as we have.
I know.
And I know that's very rare. What is the average, or that we would be looking at?
Right now, the average is 4.3 years.
So that's in that 2 years that you're guaranteeing.
It could be outside that, yes.
Okay.
You know, that if someone stays, now, again, Dr. Rand, this is very unusual, and he knows that as well. We rarely see someone stay. And I'm not saying it's the superintendent, it's more about boards and how they treat superintendents that cause superintendents to want to move on. None of us, as a former superintendent, I never enjoyed picking up my family and moving. That is not something we look forward to. But you've been blessed to have someone for 20 years, almost 20 years. And so, not to say that can't happen again. Again, it's all about what's happening in the district, the person that is sitting in that chair after he leaves, and how you develop your team of 8 with that person. It can happen.
Okay, well, with that, with the 2-year guarantee type thing, would y'all be coming to us to see how things are going in that 2 years? Would y'all be checking in with us periodically?
We will have, our field service agent will be checking in with the superintendent on a regular basis. We will see you at any training that you attend anywhere, and we always talk about how things are going, or is there additional training that we can provide, whatever it is, that however we can assist, we're going to be there to make sure that that person is successful. Our reputation depends on it as well, so we're going to do everything we can.
The reason I ask that, because we're going to have some new board members, and in effect, it's going to be a new superintendent and a new board. So guidance from your part would be with the superintendent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have 4 seats up for election right after a superintendent comes on board. So
Wow.
we don't.
And that will be, the first question, and we talk to aspiring and sitting superintendents every day. And the first question they ask, if we call someone and say, we think this is a great district for you, we'd really like for you to look at it, the first thing they ask is, well, tell me about the board. So, that will be a concern. But with the community's reputation, you all haven't been here for 20 years, I know. So it obviously works if you have good people that want what's best for kids. As long as everybody's here to do what's right for kids, it will work out.
Anybody else? I had a couple questions. So you mentioned earlier, when I was looking through your client list.
Proposal,
Well, your client, yes. I noticed that most of them are with smaller districts. And so you mentioned, as there was one, I think, on the list that had more students.
More students, Brownsville probably.
Just
We
one,
did
yes.
Brownsville.
So you'll typically work
Our
with smaller
niche is
districts.
the kind of the in-between size districts, not to say, because before, this is a 5-year list. TASB actually did Houston ISD at one time. So and I think Carrollton Farmers Branch is another one that's listed even as a reference. That would be a good district to talk to. But yes, a lot of our districts are smaller. And I'll tell you, large districts tend to think they need to go out of state and get a national search firm. And that's certainly their prerogative, but I'm not sure that you get any better service. I think there are good search firms out there, but all in all, I think we do a really good job.
And who were some of the fast growth districts? you
Shirt
mentioned?
Cibolo, we
What is
just
that?
finished Shirt Cibolo right outside of San Antonio.
Can you spell that?
Yes, it's on here. It's SCHERTZ, and then Cibolo, CIBILO. And it is on, between New Braunfels and San Antonio. That's a fast growth. Del Valley is another one that we just did, that's fast growth, and that's where the Austin Airport is. We did Brownsville, of course. We did Carrollton Farmers Branch is another. And then places like Liberty Hill and those districts that are right outside of Austin that are just exploding. We recently did several of those. Liberty Hill, Gerald, some of those. They're all smaller than you are, but they're gaining enrollment at a phenomenal rate as well. Cleveland ISD is one that we did in the Houston area, and of course they're growing and have so much growth that they're anticipating there. So there are several that we've done.
Okay. And you mentioned references, and I actually reached out to a reference for each firm. And unfortunately, the one that y'all had on your list that was closest to our numbers, they said was no longer valid. And so I just wanted, I wanted to let you know that I did try.
Okay.
But they let us know that the lady who answered, I went through this with her, and she said they were not able to use that. So I just want to let you know, you said, to check references, and I
Okay.
didn't do that.
Okay.
So we're not.
I'd be curious. Okay.
And then you mentioned the in-person, who gets to choose, I guess, whose choice, are y'all willing, if we want to, be socially distanced, et cetera, to do much of it in person, is that up to the district?
It is.
Okay.
We will make it work. If you can assure that everyone is socially distanced, and we will make it work. We usually will have the district set up the groups that they want us to meet with, and then we'll have several sessions that are just open to the public, so that anyone that would like to attend and talk to us can come in and sit down with us and do that. So in a district this size, we would spend a few days here. When we did Coppell in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I think we had 37 meetings over several days. But they felt like we had touched everyone. So we will structure that however the board chooses.
And then my final question is, so it would be Mr. Feltner, yourself,
And
and Mr. Duran?
Dr. Duran would help, and then your field service agent is Bob Smith, and he's former superintendent at Montgomery,
Oh, there he is.
and he would also assist.
Okay. And then, sorry, I have one more question that you mentioned. You said you check references that are not listed. Can you go in more detail about that?
Well, we dig deeper than references that are listed. We will go to prior boards if someone has worked in districts before the current district that they're in. We'll go there, and our field service agents are able to actually talk to people. We talk to people that they've worked with currently and in the past. So we're just going to dig a little deeper and find the things. We will bring that information to you the night that we narrow your search, your candidates down to the ones you're going to talk to. We're going to share information with you that we gather.
So how do you do that if we're trying to be confidential if we're poking around not references?
We are the ones, TASB's the one doing it, and there are lots of ways to get around talking to making it public as far as we're concerned. We have people in districts all the time, not just field service, but we will lean on our legal division, and they know those people. They know. We also hold a lot of events through Executive Search Services where we've had mock interviews, we've had aspiring superintendents. We get to know people and then are able to call without breaching the confidentiality.
Do you normally communicate directly with the board? Or do you go through our legal counsel? Or how do you?
That's a board decision. We usually, with legal counsel, we'll communicate with them, but always the board president. And then anything that the board president asks for, we'll make sure that we send it directly to the council or to your administrative assistant, depending on what kind of information it is, and then they will distribute that out to all of the rest of you. We don't want to communicate with you individually and take a chance of breaking the open meetings by someone responding and then someone else responding. And so we will make sure that we communicate with one person, whoever is the most appropriate, and they can send the information to you.
Yes. Can you tell us one of your success stories that you're proud of?
I can. I'm trying to think which one. You know, very often we will have all the criteria that boards develop, and they will skip over someone that we think meet all that criteria, and they don't select that person. And while, yes, it's your search, I believe that if there's someone up there that is really, really good, that meets all your criteria, and for some reason y'all skip over, it's my job to say, hey, did anyone look at this person? Not to twist any arms or anything. And I have had that happen twice, where they didn't look at them for whatever reason. Maybe the district wasn't the right size that they were coming from, whatever that is. And I said, I really think this person meets all your criteria, and I think, you know, maybe you should consider, and after talking and going through all the process, in 2 cases, that person has become their superintendent and was very, very successful, 2 different districts. But those are the kinds of things that we take very seriously. This is very important for this district and for the kids of this district to find the right person to take Dr. Randall's place. And we're going to work really hard to help you with that. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank y'all. And good luck.
Okay. So our second firm is JG Consulting. Please begin your presentation.
As soon as they leave, they'll bring them in. You'll see them come in just a minute.
Got it.
They can come forward.
Hands.
There's David right there.
Oh, hi, how are you, sir? Sorry, excuse me. I'm McCarthy. I had some liquor. Terrific. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Do you mind if I remove the mask?
Oh, please do.
Okay.
We can hear you better.
Easy, yes, thank you, I appreciate it. Madam President, distinguished members of the board, my name is James Guetta. I'm the president and the CEO of JG Consulting. By way of introductions, I'll let my colleague, Mr. Alton Fraley, introduce him in a second, but want to thank you for your service to this wonderful school district, to the awesome superintendent you've had for almost 20 years now, Dr. Randall. Great to see you. Thanks for having us this evening. It's a true honor. I'm going to go through a quick presentation, and please, if you have any questions as I'm talking, feel free to stop me. Happy to answer any questions. I know there's a period for Q&A at the end, but if it's appropriate at any time, feel free to interrupt. Again, my name is James, born and raised in Austin, Texas, lived different parts of the United States, returned to Austin about 6 years ago. We are the only national search firm based in Texas. We've conducted a number of superintendent searches across the entire state. We have roughly 12 retired superintendents, including my brain trust with me this evening, Mr. Fraley, who is actually locally based. So you'll see in our proposal that we've listed all of our references which are active. I mentioned that I'm from Austin, Texas. I'm a graduate of Hayes High School, Hayes Consolidated, attended Texas State University, the University of Texas, and the University of Dallas. Served the 5 largest school systems across the United States in my professional experience before the age of 30. Now I'm on the backside of my late 30s, but have had the good fortune of representing some of the most largest and complex school systems in the country. We do 3 things as a consultancy. Obviously, the superintendent search and all executive level searches are a part of our process. So when I say executive level, anything from the principalship up to the superintendency we can support. If you look at our website, you'll notice that we're doing a number of searches right now. We have another superintendent search just outside of Austin, Taylor ISD. We're conducting the East Baton Rouge superintendent search, which is on their back 9 of their process. We'll be naming a lone finalist in January. And we were just named by Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools to conduct their superintendent search. And then last week, we were hired in Phoenix, Arizona for a smaller district outside of Phoenix by the name of Agua Fria Union High School District. So I mention those because to give you a sense of our reach. We are a national firm. Although we have 12 representatives in Texas across the state, we have roughly 30 faculty members from the East Coast to the West Coast. So the main priority and the main competency of our work is the search business, the executive search work. You'll notice that we're doing 2 CFO searches in the state of Texas right now, a Chief of Communications Officer search, and then a number of others if you were to cruise our website. So, but I'd like to invite my colleague, Mr. Fraley, to say a few words, and then I'll continue with the presentation.
Good evening, President Williams, trustees, and Dr. Randall. I'm glad I'm searching and not trying to apply for the job to follow you. Okay. But thank you all for having us here this evening. I grew up on a farm, like Dr. Randall, up in East Texas. Went to college at SFA, and I'm now the chair of the Board of Regents at SFA. I retired as superintendent from KDISD in 2016 and moved to Lamar Consolidated in 2017. And so I'm a resident taxpayer, voted for the bond, all 4 parts of it. And I want to tell my neighbors that I helped finally find a good superintendent because we have all the signs in our yards about the schools the kids go to. But I'm very, very excited about the work and working with JG Consulting. I've done a few searches with them. And I really like their process. I like how the number of superintendents that we've placed, that we work with, are very confident in us. My work with AASA as national president, I've met folks from all over the country, coast to coast. And I do school board training as well. So our connections are very, very vast. And folks believe in us. They have the confidence of a number of folks who will be considered candidates to come here. So look forward to answering your questions later on as well. Thank you all for having us.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, so you can see why I refer to him as the brain trust, and I'm really here just to carry his bag. But again, thank you for having us. Our mission is very simple, but I think it aligns very well to your strategic plan, your mission statement, and the 3 words I'd like to underscore on the screen in front of you: equity. Equitable in the sense that the process will be equitable not only for the board, but also for the candidates. Now, we work at the will of the board. We do not represent the candidates. So we're here to serve you, the district, and your constituents.
transparency. Transparency for us is defined by being forthcoming and available with all of the information as it pertains to the superintendent search. I like to say that we often over-communicate to the point that it's almost patronizing. You'll hear from me regularly, whether it's by email, phone calls. We're at your disposal really 24/7. So just think of us as your executive search Sherpas. So we're here to represent you and serve you. And inclusivity is inclusive of the community, your community members, your staff, both internally, and your constituents externally. A big part of what we do is engaging in the community to help develop the leadership profile, which is synonymous with the job description. And so that leadership profile is important to include and to hear the voices of your community. So the first thing that we will do when we engage in this process is we will meet with each of you individually and ask you a series of questions. One of those questions will be, whom in the community, both internally or externally, including student groups, would you like us to visit with? And we'll create a very comprehensive list of stakeholders, both internally and externally. And we can do this in one of two ways. Now, barring any COVID restrictions, we can do as much as we have to virtually. In the case of the Austin Independent School District search, which we just finalized this past summer, we had more than 260 virtual Zoom meetings and met with 2,600 people over the course of a month and a half. Mr. Fraley mentioned that he's been a part of the search process with us. He was one of our lead consultants, and others, Dr. Linares, we have Dr. Jacklich, and then we also have our back office support. So we have full-time staff who you won't necessarily see as boots on the ground, but they'll be supportive of your community, your staff, and all those folks involved in the process. So when we say inclusive, it's including everybody. So they'll have a say in what they're looking for in the next superintendent as we develop this leadership profile. And the impact can be summed up really in one key phrase there. It's the success of the students. Obviously, the superintendent will serve you and work at the will of the board, just like we will during this time frame, but ultimately it's the success of your students and the satisfaction of the community. I've listed our references on our proposal, but in addition to that, I mentioned a moment ago and alluded to some of the other services that we offer. We've provided strategic planning support for some of our district partners. We do a number of auditing activities. Mr. Fraley serves as a certified board trainer and is slated to serve in Sheldon ISD here in the near future as a board training activity, excuse me. So you can see a list of our clients and some of the national presence that we have, and I mentioned some of our current clients, but then last but not least, coming soon, Lamar Consolidated. Differentiating factors, a couple things. Talked about the experienced practitioners, Mr. Fraley and some of the other team members. If you look at some of the work that we do, you may find that we provide leadership development academies. We train sitting principals, aspiring superintendents. And one of the things that we're currently doing is training a cohort of 20 aspiring superintendents from different parts of the United States. We have 3 sitting superintendents who serve in that capacity, all approved by their board, required by us and our legal team, so that their board understands that they're going to be out of the office for only 2 days out of their respective district. Those 3 superintendents, are Dr. Lamar Gorey, Superintendent of the Year in the state of Louisiana. Here locally, Dr. Selena Estrada Thomas in Hutto ISD, and last but not least, Dr. Vince Matthews in San Francisco Unified. So the current cohort was slated to graduate this month. However, due to COVID, we pulled back. They will graduate in January. And I bring that up to highlight, again, the reach of our team and the depth of our team. Mr. Fraley mentioned he served as the AASA president. The late, great Guy Sconzo was one of our faculty members. Former superintendent Humble ISD was the executive director of the Fast Growth School Coalition. We have experience serving fast growth school districts such as Lamar. And so that's some of the experience that I'm referring to. The interview portal. Earlier I talked about transparency. One of the things that is incredibly unique to us is we have an on-demand interview portal. So picture your laptops in front of you. As we engage with candidates, one of the major milestones in our search process, the candidates will have to respond to a series of questions that we create and collaborate on together. such as what drew you to the position of the superintendency in Lamar Consolidated? Why are you qualified to serve in this role? Whatever questions we create together. The candidates will be required to answer those questions independently of us. We'll receive automated notifications to review these on-demand videos. And when we meet in an executive session, not only to present all of the candidates and the artifacts they provide, letters of interest, resumes, academic credentials, all the above, you'll also have the on-demand interviews, which for us, if you ask any of our board partners, they'll tell you that is one of the things they enjoy the most, because before we bring candidates in on planes, trains, and automobiles, you're gonna get to know who they are. You're gonna see their demeanor, the way they dress, the way they respond to questions, because it's not enough these days, especially in our opinion and our experience, to look at a piece of paper and to say, okay, this person fits our criteria. It's good for you to get to know who they are before you choose to bring them in. And that's unique to us. We're the only group that uses this technology. And this is a screenshot of what it looks like. Because I don't have a device in front of me, I won't show the video for time's sake, but this is a screenshot of Dr. Elizalde. She was just named lone finalist in Austin ISD. We had 64 applicants for that position, representing 23 states across the country. So when we presented the candidates to the AISD board, we spent 2 consecutive days. So one thing that is incredibly unique about us is we don't withhold candidate information. It's a very common misnomer for folks to think that it's a search firm that is presenting a recycled slate of candidates or a stable of candidates. We do it in 2 ways. We're going to present each of you with a binder, and in that binder it's going to be arranged alphabetically by the candidate's last name, their first initial, their last name. And in no particular order. We're going to present Group A, what we consider to be our top 10. But by no means do you have to follow our recommendations. That's just Group A. That will be the binder. The delta, for example, if it was 64 like in Austin, you'll have 54 in Group B. But we'll spend as much time as we need in two days, similar to Austin if necessary, of executive work sessions. In each case, we spent more than 6 hours each day going through each of these, answering any questions you might have of the candidates, reviewing background information, all of the above. So it's a very thorough and robust process, because again, it's not for us to determine who you wish to bring in for an interview. This is your decision. We serve you and not the candidates, but very critically important to understand that we don't have a stable. We never recycle candidates. If you talk to any of our clients, it's also a guarantee of ours, aside from our 2-year guarantee, we'll never recruit your superintendent away from Lamar Consolidated. And all of the superintendents that we've placed during our tenure and our length of service in this industry are still serving in their respective roles today. So that's just a quick screenshot of what the on-demand platform looks like. You will have access to those videos, and our team will, of course, have access to those videos. A little bit about the recruitment. We'll cast a wide net. We work both within the traditional sectors, obviously pre-K-12. We have experience working in the non-traditional, and the way we define non-traditional, there are several superintendents in our great state that are attorneys by trade or CFOs. So if it's the will of the board for us to recruit non-traditional candidates, or the leadership profile opens it to that avenue of talent, we can certainly do that. I can tell you though, of all of the superintendents we've placed in Texas, they followed the traditional pathway. So just wanted to mention that. Business leaders, philanthropic leaders, we do nonprofit searches in the spirit of education as well. So that's how we have access to those avenues of talent. I mentioned AASA, some of the other organizations that we work closely with. The Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, it's that second acronym. My colleague who is working with me in Phoenix most recently served as the executive director for their Superintendent Leadership Academy. His name is Dr. Jose Leyva. He's currently doing 3 chancellor searches for community colleges in California, retired superintendent. One of our partners who's likely listed on the proposal is Dr. Patricia Linares. She's a retired superintendent from Fort Worth. She's one of the founding members of that group. Council of Great City Schools, we work very closely with them. CUBE, MASBA, which is our local chapter of the Mexican American School Board Association. Last November, this time of the year, I was the only search firm presenter at the National Alliance of Black School Educators in Dallas. And today, on my way driving here, I was invited by TASA to speak to their cohort. in January during the midwinter conference. So just to give you a sense of our networks that we work with. So again, just to sweeten the pot in terms of the depth of the talent pool. Now, the search process and the timeline, this is a rough sketch. So by no means do we have to adhere to this model. This is just based off of our experience. Taking into account the winter holidays and Thanksgiving quickly approaching, we can consider December to most likely be a wash, with the exception of a kickoff meeting. So if your vacations don't limit us from potentially meeting virtually or in person, we could theoretically meet in those one-on-one scenarios that I mentioned earlier and identify who in the community we can meet with. We can begin the planning this coming month. And last but not least, just wanted to show you a quick testimonial. If you were to go to our website, jgconsulting.us, under the editorials page and under current school district partners, you'll find YouTube videos of testimonials from our board partners. Any of the references on there, you're free to call, to email. If you'd like additional references, feel free to inquire with me. I'll serve as your primary point of contact to provide that information. So again, we're very intentional in the work that we do. There's a number of pending resignations, retirements. I'm sure you're all aware of our colleague and friend down the road, Dr. Dupree, is going to be exiting his role at the end of the calendar school year. I can't tell you the number of phone calls that I get during the week, but for us, it's about working with good school boards, working with good communities. More times than not, we say thank you, but no thank you, because we are very intentional. We're also a lean team. I mentioned there's 30 of us, East Coast to West Coast, with the lion's share of us based here locally in Texas. We do exceptional work, and we've never failed to search. So that's something that I'm incredibly proud of as the CEO. It's our shingle. And I want to continue that trend. And also, huge shoes to fill following up on Dr. Randall, so it'd be a disservice for us to fail you, and I can assure you that won't happen. But I'll leave you with this before I take any questions, or my colleague and I take any questions. We learned of this opportunity to interview with you this evening on Friday night. That's when I returned from Phoenix. As soon as I did, went on to my professional social media, which is my LinkedIn profile. Wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, and also to give you a sense in a short time frame how many clicks we had and how many likes we had. And that comment at the bottom, she's actually a board member in Leander ISD. So leave you with that, and I'll love to entertain any questions you might have.
Want to go first? No?
I'll go first.
John.
So you referenced Fort Bend ISD just down the road, and they're a much bigger district. They're twice our size, but we're growing fast and we're high growth. So are you saying that you're not going to get, like, if you had that gig as well, you're not going to take a slate of candidates from there and then take their number two and go, hey, Lamar's just right next door, you might want to consider them as well. Is that what you're saying? I'm
actually saying that we wouldn't compete with Fort Bend ISD. So our focus will be intentional. So if it provides assurance tonight, I'll state publicly that we will only focus on Lamar CISD. Now, if you choose not to hire us, then obviously, we'll throw our name in the hat there, because we have received inquiries. Just driving here this evening, this afternoon, I received a number of calls from sitting superintendents who wished us well, wished me good luck, to say, hey, we hope you get this because we intend to apply, which is a testament to the great tradition you have here, the history of the district, Dr. Randall's tenure, that, there's no parallel to that. But, I'm a former, athlete. My days are long gone playing sports. I still run, but we're highly competitive. And so I don't want to create any unnecessary overlap with a neighboring district, which is why, we're very intentional. And that's why I bring that up.
I'll ask one more and then let somebody else talk.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Thank you. With the resources of TASB, the group just before you, and they know all the board members statewide, why should we select you guys over them?
We do have board members who represent us part-time as well. So I mentioned earlier the Council of Great City Schools, Mr. Fraley's connection in past presidency with AASA. Our reach goes beyond just the traditional school setting, but also to elected officials who serve on boards. One of our colleagues who serves as a consultant also serves on Leadership TASB and other national elected roles. And that gentleman is Jacinto Ramos Jr. He's the board president for Fort Worth ISD. He's also the president of CUBE. So he works with us quite a bit. We're also the only third-party consultancy in the state that is, certified to serve on the Lone Star governance training, which is the Texas Education Agency training. You know, should a school district or a campus be identified as IR improvement required and in jeopardy of takeover, our team has gone through the formal training. And you can inquire with the commissioner or deputy Commissioner Cottrell. Sorry.
The search process is very stressful, and a lot of candidates are very, very cautious about applying. And whereas TASB does all the school board members, I know the superintendents. And most of them have good jobs. Those that we would want to refer to you all have good jobs that could be jeopardized should they put their hat in the ring and the word gets out somewhere, because sometimes board members will talk to their neighbors and things like that. That has happened before. But our process is very personal. For me, this one is very personal, matter of fact. We're trying to get our daughter's building a house in Cross Creek. We want to get other kids out here as well, close to us. But we would have folks who we've known for years who have confidence in us, having confidentiality with them. And so most certainly that is something, because right now I get calls too about, and I want to talk about here in the room, Lamar Consolidated is a fast rising shining star. Matter of fact, you are the fast rising shining star. I have neighbors who've moved from a neighboring school district that I'm very familiar with because they like the feel of Lamar Consolidated better. And if you're looking for a place to come and stay, it may not be 20 years, but if it can be 5, 6, 7, 8, I was in Kenny for 9 years, you want to be in a place that you want to bring your own family to. And there's a real good feel. That's why we built in Full Sharon, that's where we live. We built here on purpose when we could have moved somewhere else, because I like the feel of Lamar Consolidated, and I can definitely sell that to other qualified candidates.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Okay, I'm a visual learner, so I really kind of liked what you said about after we create the questions, you do interviews and you record them, and then you bring them back to the board so that we are kind of our first not interaction, but our first visit with these candidates is us watching their videos. Is that correct?
That's correct. We subscribe to a platform called Modern Hire. So I borrowed the idea from the private sector. If you're familiar with Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, some of the big consulting groups around the world, they use this as a similar tool, or their own version of it, to recruit their talent, in-house talent. And it's all in the spirit of transparency, but also for us as consultants to get to know some of these candidates, because not everyone that applies we will know firsthand. And not everyone will necessarily check each box of the leadership profile. So that's why it's important for us to do our homework and our due diligence before we present them to you. And that's in addition to the background checks, all of the other vetting that we'll do. Ordinarily, if we were having conferences in person, we'd also be able to meet with candidates in person. Now, occasionally some will travel to us to meet with us, but you know, this is a huge value add in the face of COVID, because it allows us to be just as thorough without compromising the quality of the search.
Okay, so the only thing I worry about is the confidentiality. They don't have a problem putting themselves on tape knowing it's going to a school, just to the school board.
No. So the Board of Trustees, each of you, when we meet one-on-one or one-on-three with however many consultants, and whether we do that virtually, we'll ask you to execute a confidentiality agreement. And then when the candidates apply, there's a verification form in the job profile that they have to sign off on as well. So they understand that in the state of Texas, we're fortunate that everything is done in executive session. So when we present the candidates, their names will not be released for public consumption. And so they're very keen on that. And as Mr. Fraley indicated, you know, it's our reputations as well. So we're going to recruit sitting superintendents to apply for this role. And so obviously we don't want to jeopardize their good standing with their current employer. And so jeopardizing that would mean disclosing that information prematurely. So the only individuals who will have access to that outside of our team are the board members. But good questions.
The 2 year, do you have any type of a guarantee after the superintendent is chosen on your part to follow through?
So it's a 2-year commitment, 2-year guarantee. So should he or she serve less than 2 years, we will conduct the executive search in its entirety at no cost. And as I mentioned earlier, knock on wood, we've never had to do that. The superintendents that we've helped recruit into place, not only here locally in Texas, but across the country, are still serving in their respective roles. I did mention some of our other services, which are, they are a la carte, and by no means do you have to engage with us for any sort of training, professional development. They're just additional services, so that's an aside. But what I often say is, because we are locally based, we want to see the district thrive. We want to support the superintendent, his or her cabinet, and you, of course, as a board. We won't love you and leave you. You know, we're here to stay. So our partnerships and our friendships that we formed through every engagement have been long lasting. You know, I mentioned Mr. Ramos, who serves in Fort Worth. He and I first met at an NSBA conference in Nashville, Tennessee years ago. And that's when he and I first met, and we helped to recruit their staff today. We've done 12 cabinet level searches on behalf of Fort Worth, helped recruit Dr. Scribner. So we've been incredibly involved just beyond the superintendent searches that we've managed.
Okay, another question was, what do you consider the average length of the superintendent's stay in a district? What have you experienced?
Well, according to the national data, a AASA claims that a district this size is 3.1 years, or 2.8 years, excuse me. A smaller district is 3.1 years. I mentioned our tenure as being longer, so that's our shingle. So I don't really give too much credence to what the national data says, because again, our intentionality is rooted in strong focus in the local communities that we serve. Although we are a national firm, we're only conducting 3 superintendent searches right now, so we're not compromising quality. And when we recruit, it's our reputations at stake as well. So I'll tell you, we don't have any third-party investors. When I founded the company 6 years ago, I slid all my chips in the table and said, I'm not going back to corporate America. You know, I have a strong team. You know, I'm really here to carry their bag. I'm just the talking head. But my guarantee to you is that we will not fail you. The superintendent that we recruit, when we have these candid conversations about what we're looking for, I'll be the first to tell them if I get in any inclination that they're going to use this as a stepping stone or it's just a short tenure, I'll say thanks but no thanks. Lamar Consolidated isn't the district for you. And I have no problem saying that, because again, it's our reputation at stake too, and our shingle is hanging high behind us. And so I'm not going to start now, and especially with his reputation. Dr. Randall has served a very long time. All the tremendous work you've done, there's no way we're going to let that happen.
Okay, I've got 2 questions, and I'll stop there. I noticed the schools, the 2 largest schools that I just made note of was, you had one for 80,000 and one with about 64,000 students. What did you consider the most challenging? And because we're heading that way. What was your challenge?
It wasn't so much a challenge as it was timing. So when we began both of those searches, well, technically Austin ISD, which is the larger of the 2 that you're referencing, started during the pandemic. And so the greatest challenge that we encountered was engaging the community, not being able to interface in person with the stakeholders. So I mentioned earlier that we had roughly 260 meetings, met with 2,600 people. He and I, plus our other colleagues, were working sun up to sundown on Zoom simultaneously with different groups. Sometimes each group could have 50, 100 people. But getting to promote, authenticity and make them feel that it was sincere, even though it was coming in from a sincere point in our hearts, like we were genuinely interested in hearing their feedback. I think the heightened sensitivity of COVID made people feel like they were less engaged. And then there was the challenge of folks who didn't have internet connectivity. to engage with us virtually. But we weren't able to meet with people in person. So I think that would be the one thing that I ask you to consider as a board, as we engage the community to get feedback. What is going to be the most helpful? Are people going to be receptive to us meeting in person? Because we're open to that. I mean, obviously we're here. We're in person tonight. I traveled, out of state last week for an interview. We're conducting the East Baton Rouge search right now, which serves 45,000 students, and we'll be meeting with them in person soon. So I think it's really dependent on the open-mindedness of the board and whether your community is willing to engage with us publicly. So we achieved our goals during that challenge, but it was just a matter of timing, and it was all new in the pandemic and due to COVID. But I think fortunately for us, because we're very tech savvy, we incorporate a lot of technology, we were able to just hit the ground without missing a stride. And that's something I'm very proud of. But, I put a lot of pressure on Alton, Dr. Lenatus, Dr. J, and some of the others on the team to be readily available virtually. And that was a very intensive 2 months of engaging the community because we wanted to reach as many people as we could. So it's a long-winded statement about the challenge, but in terms of size, the complexity and the size of the district doesn't pose a challenge because we represent some of the largest and most complex districts in the country in our other work. It's a continuation of that.
Okay, my last question, and we haven't been, our number one priority are the kids, but the financial part. Did I read it correctly that it was 25,000?
All inclusive, yes,
All
ma'am.
inclusive.
Yeah, not to exceed. So that includes access to the modern hire, all of the fees for us, our time, every advertisement that we will post nationwide and locally. It's all inclusive. The only outlying cost would be any candidate travel.
The 1,500?
Yeah, that's an average depending on where they come. So earlier I made the silly joke about planes, trains, and automobiles that no one laughed to. So if they come,
That was good. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So if anybody comes in from out of state, you can. And I'm basing it based off of our consultancy and what I pay. I travel to Phoenix, so I incurred a flight cost, a hotel, Uber, food, things of that nature. Some candidates will incur their own costs, and they'll just see it as a goal of theirs, and they take it upon themselves. But we can't expect them to do that. So the 25,000 is all inclusive, and you'll have dedicated team members. So that also includes the background checks, which I did not mention. So we outsource this to Baker Eubanks. It's their sole purpose in life. It's their practice is what they do. They engage in professional background checks. It's $750 per candidate. I often joke that if you dropped a treasure chest in the bottom of the Gulf, this team would find it. If you have unpaid parking tickets, a lien on your home, poor credit, they'll verify academic credentials. Every report that we get per candidate when we present the binders to you will be included in that set of binders. It can range anywhere from 20 pages to 40 pages in length. So we'll need at least a 2-week runway to give them enough notice, but that's also included in our fee.
I have a couple questions for you. You mentioned fast growth, but more in the area, I felt like, of that y'all are involved with Lamar versus have you been successful with any fast growth districts?
Absolutely. So here in this region, Crosby ISD is a fast growth district. In fact, the late great Dr. Sconzo was one of the consultants at the time, and he was also serving as the executive director. And now they are actually in pursuit of a superintendent. Again, the superintendent we recruited, Dr. Davis, is retiring after the new year. So they're one of our local fast growth districts. Hutto ISD is a fast growth district, much smaller but in close proximity to Austin. So if you're familiar with Pflugerville, Round Rock, Hutto, that central Texas area, that's where Dr. Thomas served. So in the 100-year history of the district, she was the first female aspiring superintendent to be named their superintendent. So she's doing a fantastic job. The district is still experiencing tremendous growth. I mentioned Taylor ISD, which is actually the neighboring district to Hutto. We're conducting their search now, but we're getting towards the latter stages of that process. They're not yet considered a fast growth, but if the growth of that demographic continues and trends the way it does in the year-on-year projections, they're slated to have 2 new communities being built. They have a Peterbilt partnership. So a lot of the business and the commerce that's happening there, I would anticipate they'd be considered a fast growth district as well.
As far as the transition process, it looks like, so once we select a loan finalist, then that's the end of our relationship.
So you'll name a loan finalist, and then whatever date we choose for that major milestone, the 21-day period will occur. We'll work with you. We have legal staff, and this is all-inclusive again. We have a team of school district attorneys across the state and nationwide, but we'll identify somebody here locally to help you with negotiations and working with the named finalist, whoever he or she may be. We just serve as kind of an ally in terms of just helping you, kind of usher you through that process, but we're not technically a part of the negotiation piece, but we will help you with the transitioning of that. And if the incoming superintendent wants additional help with onboarding, perhaps development of a 90-day entry plan, whatever those objectives are, we can certainly help, because those are services we also provide. But during the 21-day period, before he or she is officially contractually named after the 21-day period concludes, we will be there to help you. Sorry, I see your shadow.
Let me add this, and I just joined TASA as a superintendent in residence, and so I'll be available to serve as a mentor to the new person, but also as a resident of the district, be available for any type of support this person may need, most certainly.
Thank you. Do you have, what would be the cost to us to have somebody previously mentioned that they have like a transition, like they sitting down with the board with the new superintendent, going over goals, et cetera? So that is something y'all offer outside of this package?
Or we can include it in this, depending on the timing.
Okay.
You know, that scope of work, I think, would have to be determined in advance of what the objectives are of the board and, you know, what some of the major milestones are. So without having a benchmark for what you look to achieve, it's hard to assign a figure to it. But I would tell you here publicly that if it's as simple as helping with a transition and an entry of the incoming superintendent, we can do that in kind. Because again, you know, one of the things that we want to guarantee is a measure of success. And that's part of the work that we do. We're actually quite affordable in terms of our rates. I know that we're not the local group, and that, you know, they have their full-time staff in Austin. But if you compare us to the national average of other national firms, we're able to offer a lower rate because of the other services we provide that I mentioned earlier. So that helps us to offset a lower cost. And we all work in the spirit of helping folks advance and helping districts advance. So I think we all have that same set of norms and values, and I know that the team kind of all embodies that. So I don't want to speak for Mr. Fraley, but I think, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, add just one more thing. I'm also registered with TEA as a school board trainer, so I can do team building with the board, and you get 3 hours credit for it as well. And and I'm more than happy to put that in on his dime.
All right, thank you.
Got to take care of the big guy. But good questions. Yeah.
And I want to let you know that I did reach out to one of your references, and they did speak highly of your,
thank you.
your work.
Thank you.
So,
I think I have one more question I was just thinking of. You know, coming to Texas is a idiosyncrasy on its own. Are there superintendents out there that are people aspiring that want to move to Texas? Do you really have a big pool that would come from afar? I always thought it would be more in-house, so to speak.
Yeah, so I'll reference Austin again. So we had 23 states out of 64 applicants. They named Dr. Elizalde, who was chief in Dallas ISD, serving under Dr. Michael Hinojosa, who was actually the individual who trained me in this work. He was the superintendent of Hayes Consolidated when I was a graduate. His wife, his better half, was my English teacher in high school. To answer your question, there will be candidates from out of state. Now, again, it's the will of the board who you choose to hire. And oftentimes what we find, it's usually somebody who has experience in Texas, whether they're currently serving in Texas in a district or have moved to another state and want to return home.
Okay, so
I
they have
think-
some ideas of what Texas.
Absolutely, because every state has its, like you said, idiosyncrasies, its nuances. The finance system, of course, is different. You know, in the state of California, they have unions, collective bargaining. Every state has its own uniqueness or unique, differences. And so we're very familiar with those differences because of our work in different states. So we can speak to that. We can help you navigate through identifying where candidates may have some deficiencies when it comes to understanding some of the Texas statutes, the finances, where their strengths are. So having the ability to do a really deep dive into the pros and cons of each candidate, we'll be able to help you with that. That's for me, and this is I statement where I think we do really well is having the ability to really get to the bottom of where the true strengths are of the candidates. I mentioned earlier, we don't recycle candidates, we don't have a stable. We're looking for the best and most qualified candidate to serve Lamar Consolidated, and that's our ultimate goal. But what we want to do, and I know that we'll have done our job whenever we meet in executive session and all of you are saying, man, this is a tough decision. Like, we're having a hard time narrowing this down from 60 plus to however many you wish to interview in person. So I'll know that we've achieved our goal when we're making it difficult for you. And I have no doubt in my mind, because of the reputation of Lamar Consolidated, that you're not going to have that with us. Just based on the sheer number of outreach and inbound calls that we've both received, Dr. Randall's reputation, this district, the staff have been really helpful in getting us here to this point. You're thorough. I mean, you know what you're doing. You're Lamar Consolidated. So this is something that we would be honored to represent in this capacity.
Thank you.
Just come up with a scenario, if we pick someone in the top 3 or so, and that you know of somebody that you just really, really think should have been considered, how do you approach that to the school board?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not uncommon for us to get that question towards the end. What do you think? And I'll be frank. I generally will always respectfully decline because, again, we feel it's your decision to make as a board. Just rest assured that whatever candidates we bring to you and we recommend, whether they're in the top A or even if they're on the fringe in Group B, the bubble candidates, to use a sports analogy, they will be certainly qualified. But you'll know. It's usually the relational connection you have when you interview. If you haven't interviewed anyone prior, whether your professional experience or on the board, I know he's been here for almost 2 decades, you're going to have that connection. So when you interview the candidates, he and I and the other consultants will actually be off in the bullpen somewhere, here locally, wherever we're holding the interviews. We'll be here to support you, but it's you and the candidates. And then in the final round, the candidate and his or her significant other, spouse, or partner. So I think that relational connection, you'll just know. You'll have that epiphany. It never fails. So I don't think you'll need to come to us and ask for our recommendation. And it's happened a couple times just for, wanting validation. And for me, this is about the board. We work at the will of the board. So I wouldn't feel comfortable telling you what we think, because you'll know. You'll just know. Your service to this community, it's why you were elected. Your constituents have faith in you. The staff have faith in you. Just rest on faith and it'll all work out. Good questions, though. That was a good one.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again. It's an honor to be here before you this evening. Best of luck in your endeavor. Should you have any other questions, you have my contact information. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take we will take a 5-minute break while staff are setting the meeting room up for our next firm. The third firm is Hazard Young Asia.
Yes, that's right.
Asia Associates. You can please give your presentation.
Board members, a couple key things about this virtual. There are mics set up for you. We are asking that when you do ask a question that you speak loudly and clearly to make sure the mic can pick you up. You also have a camera so that when you ask a question, the camera will rotate so that the company can see you as well as hear you.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
and you may want to think about or ask them if they can hear you okay if you have your mask on.
Okay. Will be in? Can y'all hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Are
you ready?
Yes.
We need Chad to allow me to screen share, so. Okay, Rick?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting us to interview. We're honored to have the opportunity to appear before you tonight to be considered for the job as your search consultant. You've read the proposal, I'm sure, so in the next few minutes, we're going to highlight our approach of what you can expect from us. We'll start out by introducing ourselves briefly. Again, our resumes are in the proposal. My name is Rick Berry. I'm a retired superintendent. I began my career as a teacher and coach in a small town in West Texas. Moved from there to the Arlington School District as a high school counselor. 17 years later, I was a superintendent of schools. And after 4 years as superintendent there, I was recruited to Cypress Fairbanks ISD to be superintendent, and began there in 1992, retired in 2004 after 12 years. And up until this point, I'm the longest serving superintendent in the history of that district. Since that time, I have been consulting in Texas for a few companies that do work with school districts in public education, including Hazard Young and Atia.
I wonder, can we make their screen bigger while they're talking? No?
Not
Okay.
when they got a screenshot.
Got it. Okay.
I mean,
Hi, I'm Nola Wellman. I was born and raised in Texas and started my teaching career in Lubbock, but after a year moved to Colorado, where I spent 30 years being a teacher, a principal, assistant superintendent, deputy, and ultimately left Colorado and came back to Texas, to the Austin area, to the Eanes School District, where I served as superintendent for almost 11 years. I retired in 2014, and my successor was chosen through the Hazard Young Atia process. And watching that process, I was fortunate to be able to join this team where we've been doing searches, and I've been working on other consulting opportunities since that time. So very happy to be with you this evening. Thank you.
I'm Peter Flynn. Again, thank you so much for having us this evening. We appreciate the hard work that you're doing as a school board and superintendent under these difficult conditions. I also want to thank Chad for giving us a little test run this morning, and also for Attorney Morris for communicating with us and facilitating our giving you our PowerPoint and proposed calendar for later. And I started out as a classroom teacher, but I guess before that, I should tell you also that I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, and when I was a classroom teacher, I taught for several years and then became an instructional leader and eventually got into school administration and was a superintendent, as you saw from my resume, in 4 different states for a total of 34 years, and retired in 2012 and called Bill Atia and asked him if I could work with him and do searches. And the first search I did was not too far from your district in Fort Bend. I did it with Rick Berry, and Bill Attia was our mentor, our coach, and the leader of that search. And since then, as Nola said, that we've done quite a few searches as a team, and we're happy to be here with you this evening.
So in starting out, we've taken the opportunity to learn a lot about your district. Actually, having been the superintendent in Region 4, I'm pretty familiar with Lamar Consolidated, your superintendents, and actually over the years since I've been consulting and retired, I've met a number of your board members over the years. But we have learned a lot about your district by looking at your website and other publicly available information, and through information in newspapers and TASA Daily. We began, of course, with some fundamental documents such as your commitment to providing a special approach to shape and cultivate the whole child. We've learned also that your board has a commitment to your mission and to a superior education of inspired leadership, which we believe gives you a new and more effective basis for your decision-making and providing direction for your continual improvement, as well as a systemic approach for governing as a school board.
I want to tell you just a little bit about Hazard Young T and Associates. So far, and over the last 30 years, that have been involved with about 1,400 searches with school districts all over the country. But each search is unique, is something that we've learned. No two searches are alike, and therefore we always try to customize each search. More than 100 associates throughout the country. We're not necessarily the largest of search firms, but we do have about 125 active associates right now, and a full-time professional staff behind us back at the office. The process that we use is research informed, and it's one that continues to improve and be updated as we understand and participate in searches throughout the country. Here's an overview of our search, where there are 4 aspects to the process, and we'll talk about engage and recruit, select, and transition as we go through this. So first of all, let's talk about the engage part. We think that this is really important because it lets the community, and when we say the community, we mean not only the people who live and work and pay taxes in your school district, but also the staff, the students, the parents. But the engagement part of the school district process is to sit down with the board first of all, immediately, and plan every aspect of the engage part so that we understand everything that's going to happen in the search, put it on a calendar, and it's clear to everybody what's going to happen. Once the board agrees upon and takes our process and customizes it to the special needs of Lamar Consolidated Independent School District, then we're ready to go. And one of the first things we do is to pull together the members of the community, and according to groups that the board has defined, and we conduct a survey. The survey is not only about what the next superintendent should be like, but also what is the school district like. Now, we know that you have a strategic plan, and you also have school improvement plans. This is a tool that can help and share a perspective on your plans that you already have in place. The other part of the survey is the research part, and that's based upon 25 years of research on effective superintendents. And those are boiled down to a dozen competencies that are surveyed in this instrument. And again, we ask you to define the groups that will take this survey and give that feedback to the school district. In addition, we conduct interviews and focus groups, listen to people. Again, the board typically in a district your size would have us do about 25 meetings, maybe 20 meetings, including one-on-one meetings with the board and the superintendent if you so choose. And we pull all that information together during the engage phase. After listening to people and compiling the information in the surveys, we're able to put together some consistent themes and trends that we heard in these discussions and saw in the survey, and particularly put it together in a leadership profile or profile of desired characteristics, and present that to the board shortly after we do the engagement, and ask the board whether or not they think it truly reflects what they are looking for in their next superintendent. And then once the board approves that, that becomes a real important and guiding piece in the process of the superintendent search for the school district. Because it defines the selection criteria and it gives direction for the recruit phase. Now, we say advertising is one of the primary things that happens, and sure it is. And we get involved in that advertising right away. As soon as we're given a job, we list it on our website, and our website's a busy place because it lists all the superintendencies that are available in the United States, whether we're doing the search or not. So a lot of people come to our website and look at what's there, and it's a great way to advertise. But we also do proactive recruitment. Based upon the profile that the board develops, amends, and approves, we go and look for people. And we look for people who aren't necessarily looking for another job. Very frequently, we find that they are happy where they are, they're not looking for another job, until they know of what a great opportunity awaits them at Lamar Consolidated ISD. In fact, this is something that we just say that we do. If we look at the 12 superintendent searches that we've done over the last few years as a team, we know that 11 out of the 12 people that were ultimately hired did not originally apply for the job, but were recruited by us or by our firm in some way to bring to the profile. And when we ask people to tell us about their skill sets in relation to the profile, we ask them to share with us some concrete evidence that shows a track record of improvement over time as a superintendent. And then we screen for that. We talk with the references that they give us, as well as people that we know who should be familiar with their work. We also do preliminary interviews with people that we think might be a good fit for the profile that's been developed by the board. And then ultimately, we prepare materials for the board to review in reference to those people that might be brought to them in the form of a slate. The board, of course, will define the size of the slate and the timing of that, but that's what we do during the recruit phase. So with that, I'll pass it on to Nola, and she'll talk about the next phase.
Good evening, and again, thank you for having us. Thinking about Thanksgiving coming up, when you get to the selection phase, this is the main course. This is the part in which you will be very active, and it will be directed by you throughout the selection phase. We will assist you, we will train you and support you in selecting the best candidate. The selection phase begins with a workshop in which we help you with the best interview practices, and then a presentation of the slate of candidates that have been vetted by us, screened by us, interviewed by us, and all on that foundation of the leadership profile and desired characteristics that were created and put together by you and the community. We will tap into our own network and confidentially seek to ensure that we're providing the best information about a candidate's record of achievement. And we are committed always to spending the time and energy on finding the best candidate to make sure that we're bringing you the highest quality candidates possible. After the interview workshop and the slate is presented, we will help you with an interview script based on the questions that you want to ask candidates, helping you with question writing and making sure that the amount of time allocated is equal for all of the candidates. Following the interview process, which you will do round 1, we will debrief with you. And if you are interested, then we will start talking about performing background checks on some of the candidates. The site visit after the second round, in which you will continue to hone in on candidates that you are continue to be interested in, we will finally look at a site visit. After the lone finalist is selected, our firm will continue to provide support for you throughout that process. Once the lone finalist is named, then the work with contract negotiations, and again, we are available to help with that. One thing that we've had success with for us is working with the board on an entry plan for the candidates and for the lone finalists. Make sure that first 90 days is very impactful and successful for the new superintendent. We will also provide some optional transition services. You can see some of those listed there, but things that we can help with in goal setting and evaluation. You have a strategic plan, so making sure that those are all aligned and other opportunities that we can talk about at a later date. Another key component of the entire search process is communications, and our firm has a portal for your use. It is a valuable resource and a repository of information that gives you templates and sample questions for interviewing. And we will provide you with frequent updates of our progress and what we are doing. We can do that by email or any other means of communication that you are most comfortable with. A key component of the process, which would happen in the planning meeting, is setting out the calendar. When you want that superintendent to be on board and taking that calendar backwards, so we make sure that we meet all of those interim deadlines. We'll provide information for your communications department and the district website, and we recommend that you have a single page for your superintendent search, easy to find on your front page of your website, so that others can find what you're doing, and it'll keep that up to date with ongoing progress. Then as you saw, we will support interviews, discussions, and negotiating the contract or helping the two sides with that. This is just the picture of the page of the portal, and something we will share with you is the landing page for the board portal. So communication's a key component of the process, and I will turn it over to Mr. Berry at this time.
Thanks, Nola. Our commitment to you as a board is to customize the search for your unique needs as a district and as a school board. We'll utilize our experience, our firm's experience from the wide variety of searches that we have done to form a partnership with you. We consider you the senior partners, and of course that means we're the junior partners. And what that actually means to you is that we will make recommendations to you, guide you through the process, and we'll do all of the work of the process. You will give direction to us, and you will make all the decisions. We want to make this process for you as a school board as easy as possible. However, we do want to make your decision, ultimately your decision to pick a lone finalist out of the excellent candidates that we will bring to you. We want to make that decision hard, and the reason we say that is that we want to have such outstanding candidates for you to choose from that it won't be an easy decision.
At this point, I'm going to stop screen sharing just for a second because the next slide in our PowerPoint presentation is the calendar. And what we did was we sent to the board a copy of the calendar so that you had it in a single sheet. And what I'd like to do is share that sheet as well. So I hope you'll be able to see this. And it's predicated on this date down here of April 20th. This is a little different from the one that we put in our original proposal. We thought that it was important for us to try to finish before the 1st of May in order to provide you with this process being completed by then. And so that's what everything else is built upon. And if we back up and go up here to the top, we can see that December 1st is when we're suggesting a planning meeting take place, which is just after the Thanksgiving holiday. And then, however, if the board decides as early as this week on us, we could begin announcing the position on our website, and actually the advertising would begin on the 23rd. And applications could be set up as early as a couple of days after the planning meeting that we talked about earlier. And then there would be a period of time during which the survey would be available online for people to participate in. And then we're suggesting on the 16th and 17th of December, the board and stakeholder engagement take place, focus groups. And then after the winter holidays, we would bring back to the board that profile that we talked about and share that with the board. The board had the opportunity at a board meeting, if that's I believe this happens to be a Tuesday, but the idea would be that the board would amend, edit, and prioritize the profile. And then for about 6 weeks, we would engage in serious, focused recruitment based upon that profile, and then come back on March 9th and do that interview workshop that Nola talked about on March 9th, and also present the slate to the board at that time. We would also recommend, and it doesn't have to be on these particular days, but 2 days for interviewing members of the slate. And then there's an asterisk next to this date here, because we suggest that on about March 13th, the board would narrow the group down for a group that would come back for a second round of interviews for preferred applicants. And what we're suggesting there is that perhaps it would be a good idea to begin the deep background slate, which usually takes 7 to 10 days, on the 3 preferred applicants. And therefore, when the second round takes place during March 22nd and 26th through 26th, the deep background checks would be done by that time. Were we to wait until you got to the one preferred candidate on about March 26th, it would take 10 days, and that would throw the whole sequence of events off, because we're suggesting that the lone finalist could be named as early as March 30th, and then 21 days later on April 20th, your appointment could take place. So that's kind of a quick overview of the calendar, and if you have some questions on that, we could let me hold on a second here, please. Is that up on everybody's screen? Okay, hold on a second. I need to share my screen again. And put up. I'm having a little technical problem here. What do you have on the screen?
Calendar?
Okay, the calendar's still up there?
Yes.
Okay. Is the next slide up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Nola, you doing the next slide?
Yes, and you're not in presentation mode. You're in note mode. But anyway, this is a list of the districts that we've worked on. I obviously did not work on the Fort Bend or Round Rock or Eanes one, but after that, I worked with the team. And there were other searches done by our firm prior to this, but as a team, we've been together through all of these searches. So now, Dr. Flynn, to the guarantees.
Yeah, and the guarantees are here in front of you. We'll work with you until you're satisfied with the people that we bring to you. There's actually a guarantee of 2 years that will come back and work with you for any reason, if other than a personal matter that the superintendent leaves. We'll come back and do the search again for nothing but expenses. And then we won't try to recruit away from you anybody that, as a matter of fact, I don't think we've ever done that, now that I think about it. And so we won't try to recruit anybody away from you for at least 3 years. And then finally, we'll match the price of any competitive bid as long as the level of services are the same. So we're almost done. If you have any questions that you have for us at this time, and then we have one very quick closing statement. Do you have any questions at this time?
I don't see any. I mean, before your closing statement, you're saying?
Yeah, okay. Rick, you want to start this off?
Okay. Well, usually a question would be, so we close with this, and that's why should you select our firm for your search? And there are a number of reasons. We know you have choice in some excellent firms. We know each other. They're all good and they're friends. So we know you'll make a very good decision whichever firm you choose. But our references will speak on our behalf. The board members of the districts where you've seen that we as a team have worked with have all told us that they would be happy to do that and have done that in many cases in the past. We will commit to you that we will be well informed and that we are continual and quick learners, and we're excellent listeners. We work hard. We deliver everything that we promise or that's expected. In fact, our goal will be to exceed your expectations. We're not working on any other searches currently. We just finished the Clear Creek search. And we prefer it that way. We really don't like to do more than one search at a time. And we never double slate candidates, even if we're doing another search at the same time, which we've only done a couple of other times. But we would not ever put the same candidates in more than one search at the same time. So we would urge you to contact the board presidents of the districts that we've worked with, and we're not committed to another search at this time. So we would love to have the opportunity to represent you and work with you on your superintendent search. And I think Peter's got one more statement, and then you may have questions.
Well, one of the things that we didn't talk about is that when we did the Clear Creek search, we did almost, we did a lot of the work virtually because of the pandemic, and that happened to work out as a really good search where we had more than 1,800 people participate in the community engagement phase, which we thought was an excellent way to include people in the process. And then we also had a really good way to interact with people through that process. And we thought it was very successful, and it was a safe and healthy way to go about it, particularly for the participants in the community engagement phase, but also for the candidates, the applicants, as well as the other people who worked on the search. And that's something that we would strongly recommend if a district was interested.
Any questions?
I have
Start?
I'd like to go back to the interview workshop that you said
Yes.
would be scheduled on March the 9th.
Yes.
Okay, going back, what will you be doing from now till that date? As far as recruit applications?
Correct. We would advertise immediately in a generic advertisement. Then we would do the community engagement and the survey, the collection of information from the community, so that you and your constituents can say, this is what we believe are the qualities and desired characteristics of your next superintendent. And then we would begin accepting applications as early as December the 3rd. And we would come back to you after synthesizing all of the community engagement information and the surveys, the focus groups, and we would do that in December, and in January, the leadership profile report would be presented and approved by you, hopefully accepted by you. And then we would begin intensive recruiting from January 14th to the 1st of March, where we're interviewing, and it might be more quiet from your side of the table, but from our side of the table, that 6 weeks will be quite intensive as we interview the applicants who chose to put their application in, and also those that we are recruiting for this particular opportunity. And then March 9th, the interview workshop lasts a little less than an hour, and it's really about questions and how to ask questions and what you're listening for, and what are some of the legal do's and don'ts, things you can ask, things you can't ask, just best practices in terms of interviewing. So that's what we would do from December 1st, really to March 1st.
I have a question. When you were saying the background checks, you don't really start those till we narrow it down? Is that what you're saying? Or the most intense background checks? You do a preliminary, correct?
We do a lot of vetting as we receive applications and as we recruit, but the actual deep background checks come at the end when you get down to your preferred candidates.
And how many do you usually recommend that we get down to?
To this, well, we recommend 6 normally that you interview, and then we recommend you go after that first round, you go to 3, and we will work with you to narrow that list down. And then we recommend that you do the deep background checks on the final 3.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question or two. Can you talk a little bit about community engagement? How will you go about that? Will that be done by Zoom? Will you ask the board, or will you ask teacher groups, or how will you go about finding the community to engage, first of all?
We ask the board to define who the groups are. We ask the board we make some suggestions, for example, board members of your educational foundation, or if you've got a parent group district-wide that focuses on special education, for example, you might want to have a special group there. So the board would define which groups we would listen to, and then there might be some open meetings where anybody could come. You probably also want to identify certain times for staff members to come in and to a session where we can listen to them. And so sometimes boards do it so that they have secondary people come at one time and elementary people come at another time. Same with administration. So the board defines what the groups are for us to listen to, and we follow that direction from the board.
Usually ends up about 20 groups, and then each board member would have an individual one-on-one, as well as usually Dr. Randall, your superintendent, would have a one-on-one interview. And those interviews are really about the strengths of your district and what your district is facing in the next years, and what are the qualities and characteristics that you think the leader needs to know and be able to do that we're looking for. So it's a common question interview process, and then we synthesize that information.
And is it Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Is that who asked the question? We ask the same 5 questions in all the listening sessions, whether it's a board member or a group of parents, or in some cases a group of students. And we ask people to talk about the strengths of the district, and then the characteristics, which are the challenges of the district. What are the strengths of the district and the challenges? And then with that as a context, tell us what kinds of characteristics would be best for the next superintendent to have, given those strengths that you want to keep and build upon, and challenges that you want to address and rectify. And then following that, we ask people to talk about why somebody would want to be the next superintendent in Lamar Consolidated ISD. And the reason why we ask that is because, as we mentioned earlier, very frequently the person who is chosen was recruited for the position, and therefore they weren't looking for a job. So that's part of the recruitment process. And then finally, we ask people if they know of some candidates who might be likely people that would fit those characteristics that they've just talked about. So we ask the same 5 questions in all our listening sessions.
The board portal that you spoke of, is that something that we would all 7 have access to, that we would go in on our own time and see the latest information that you've gathered? Is that how that works?
Yes, sir, and it includes the applications to the position. It includes some resource materials, but it's a confidential portal for each of you, and with a username and a password.
Right, and you're right, and you can go anytime you want into that portal, and only the board can go unless the board decides that somebody else should have access to it. but that's a board's decision. It's for the board.
That's all I have right now.
Can I just do a follow-up? Excuse me. In the communications, would that be like in February, January, a timeline on gathering all this information from the community, or the list from us as to who we'd like for you to talk to? Are we talking like January and February?
Actually, we talked to you about that at the planning session. That first meeting that would be on this calendar, December 1st, we set the calendar that you approve, and then we will talk through every phase of the search, and part of that will be determining the groups, and then setting up, and we have on here proposed dates to do that. I believe it's
December 16th.
16th and 17th of December. We need to get that in as early as possible because we have to synthesize that, bring that all together to help develop the profile to come back to you for approval of the profile that we recruit from and that you use in your considerations as you move forward.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. So you listed how many of your candidates, 11 out of 12, you said were recruited and were not applicants. So to me, I guess it sounds like you consider that a pro. So I just wanted to understand some of the pros and cons of seeking out recruiting versus selection of the applicants. Did I make that?
Well, just because we recruit somebody doesn't mean we are going to recommend them to you to interview. We recruit a number of people because we think at the beginning that they will fit the profile that you've approved, and then we vet them and interview them. And one of the things that we have all agreed to is that all three of us have to agree that any individual would come before the board for an interview. And so we have lots of discussions after we go through that process with them. And while the majority of the people that we bring to the board usually are people that we have recruited initially, that doesn't mean that all the people we recruit come before the board. It's a process that takes quite a bit of time, and we do believe that it is a pro because, as Peter, I think, had said earlier, we think many times the best candidates are not candidates that are looking for a job. They're very happy where they are. They're doing a good job. They got a good track record, and somebody has to go talk to them to interest them in another opportunity. And we think we've gotten pretty good at that, but it is a process. Sometimes you have to call those people back 2 or 3 times before they'll want to talk about it. It's time consuming, but we think it's very worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. So I see that y'all have worked with a lot of large districts. So how about your fast growth district?
We have worked with a lot of fast growth school districts. If you look at that list, I don't know if you're familiar with all of them. I'm sure you are with some. Fort Bend is fast growing. Round Rock is fast growing. Northwest is fast growing. Garland, I think, has been over the years fast growing. I'm trying to find it here in my list here, but I would say a majority of the ones that we work with have been fast growing. Humboldt has been fast growing. Crowley is fast growing.
Yes.
Northwest.
Northwest is very fast growing. I'd say it's clearly a majority. They're mid-sized and large, and the majority are fast growing.
Humboldt.
Yes. Obviously, Clear Creek has been as well.
And then also with your, I noticed as part of the package, the transition portion is extra. It's not included in the, let's see where I'm at. It's not included in the proposal, correct?
Some parts of it are, and one of the things that we do is as a result of the leadership profile that we put together, that's usually about a 30 to 35 page report. We do have an executive summary that's usually 10 to 12 pages long. And, but that has a lot of good information for the board to know about and for the new superintendent to know about in terms of what goals might be set for the team of 8 to work on. And so we will put that together, no charge, and assist and facilitate a conversation between the new superintendent and the board on that kind of basic information. If we were to come in and do a full-blown workshop on the actual setting up the evaluation and doing the goal setting that way, that, yes, that's an added service.
Thank you. I have a question. No, go ahead. Okay.
We are going to have a lot of new board members in the next year. Yeah. So we're not only dealing with a new superintendent, we are also going to be working with new board members that unfortunately will not have the knowledge that some of the old board members have. How do you see that to get a new superintendent and a fairly fresh school board to work together? What would you suggest would be our idea for the future?
Well, let me ask you a question, if I may. Is Ms. Kaminsky?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so the question is, how many board members are you expecting to lose next year?
We've got 4 that are going to be.
4 positions.
Are coming up for election in May.
Okay. Our suggestion would be that a transition plan be developed for the incoming board members to work with the new superintendent, and that the outgoing board members have some history to tell. I guess the 2 board members that I'm looking at, if I'm not mistaken, have been on since 2013.
Yeah.
Right? That's right. And so you've got 7 years of experience to share, and it would be good to cull that history from you in some discussions and then put together an orientation for the new folks coming on so that they would have that knowledge and that benefit. What do you think, Rick and Nola?
I think that's a very good question because that's happening all over the place. But what Peter said, I think, is right on. But another thing, and you all probably are doing some of this, and that is to have an ongoing process where you bring people in to the school district through a committee process or some type of process where you can encourage people to become educated about what the district is doing and what the school board's part of that is. So when people run for the school board, at least some of them have some background about what's been happening and how it happens. And then you've got people better prepared. They've actually met the superintendent. They've been in meetings with the superintendent. They see how the board interacts. And I think that just goes a long way towards providing good candidates and candidates who come in and don't have to learn everything overnight. They have some knowledge going in. Now, obviously, everybody knows you get on the school board, you have a steep learning curve that first year. Even if you don't have a new superintendent and you're the only new board member, you have a steep learning curve. But anything you can do to help that and provide, as Peter said, orientation and understanding of the role and process, I think could go a long way towards smoothing that out.
Do you have a training program that would help us with that?
Well, we did that in Cy-Fair when I was superintendent there in several ways, but we had several processes ongoing, and I and the board member, myself and board members would encourage people that we knew who were smart, caring people who valued public education, wanted the schools to do well. We would encourage those people to be involved in those processes. We'd almost recruit them. Come and be a part of this process so you can learn. And then once they did, they would find themselves being encouraged to run for the school board if there was an opening.
I think if you already plan for a board and superintendent workshop all day, lots of activities. Dr. Flynn and I have facilitated a couple of them with boards, just getting to know your new superintendent, and added in that is getting to know each other. And so a day of activity where you have lots of time to talk and kind of come up with some common values and direction. You have your strategic plan. But if you plan on that happening and get it on the calendar, no matter who your new board members are, no matter who your new superintendent is, that's already in the process for you to have that time. And it is one of the services that we can provide.
And the three of us are certified by TEA to work with school boards.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess what you were also trying to ask, we have the selection, we could end up with maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 4, we don't know. But would it be better to wait to do once we choose the superintendent, wait to have that meeting to maybe figure out what we want to see after 3 or 6 or 12 months after a new board has been set?
Correct. Maybe it's in June.
Okay,
If your
so
new
wait for
superintendent
that.
doesn't start till July, then it's in July. But you're starting next school year, hopefully, in a semi-normal way, but you're starting that with having that foundational opportunity to talk.
My last question is, and guarantee number 4, you say that you'll agree to match the price of any competitive bid as long as the bid is for a comparable level of services and support.
Yes.
So that's a guarantee?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And what we provide in terms of services, we think is a little bit unique, and particularly in the community engagement phase.
Okay. All right. And the last thing I'll just comment is that I did make a call to one of your references, and you did get very high remarks, so, or high marks, however you say it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you, President
again.
Williams. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Randall.
Thank you.
All right. So we want to thank the,
No,
Nope.
I'm doing something
He's
else.
chewing them out.
okay.
No.
No?
I'm telling them to move the screen.
No, just move that screen.
You can go ahead and
Okay.
get started. I'm just.
So we want to thank the firms for their presentations tonight. We are now ready for deliberations, and the floor is open for discussion amongst the trustees.
Wow. So, Dr. Randall, were you recruited or did you come looking?
Recruited.
So do you agree with their statement that
Honestly, thank you very much.
being happy somewhere else is a pro, because they're not necessarily, I guess, maybe running from something, or, I don't.
I would agree that anytime that you're not looking for a job, oftentimes when that opportunity comes along, it validates the work that you've been doing.
Mr. Hubenak has something to say, I believe.
No, it's best that I don't.
Okay.
But do you
Moving
agree,
on.
you agree though too, like he was talking about family, everybody has to buy into the move. It's not just necessarily you as the one person, the whole family had to be considered?
I'll answer this question and I'll let Rick, who's kind of guiding this.
Oh,
but-
okay.
So
Okay.
This is just
I,
personal opinion.
Well, they just mentioned family and
okay.
the importance.
That is one of the reasons why, if you remember, they talked about, at one point, you actually have your spouse come and they actually meet with the board and visit with the board and that type of thing. Anytime that you're making a move, if it is not a family move and everybody agrees to it, it can be a bit of a challenge, so.
Does Dr. Randall get to also have a survey, put down his vote? Is he included, or is it just the school board?
No, ma'am.
The answer's no. Now, that's not to say that you as trustees can't ask Dr. Randall for his input, because obviously, given his 20 years of experience and his knowledge about available candidates, there's a lot of valuable information that you can learn from him. At the end of the day, the choice is yours, just like I think every search firm reiterated to you. They'll help you through the process, they'll do the heavy lifting, but all the decisions are yours to make.
So the third firm was not local?
No, but neither, I think, was the second firm, although they have local presence. both of them.
Right, but they didn't, but I was trying to hear from the third firm if they have people, boots on the ground here in Texas or in.
I guess I could answer,
Yeah.
just based on the observation. They're a national firm.
Right.
But two of those individuals are located in Texas.
Okay.
I think I read, it was Mr. Berry?
Mr. Berry
Has he been here?
and Dr. Wellman.
And
Wellman?
because she was
He looked familiar.
Superintendent at Eanes, and I've already made some phone calls about that.
Yeah, that last one was brutal. So what concerns me with that last one is they do very few of these, and you mentioned that, and they have nothing going on right now. So how engaged are they? You know, the second presenter, he's got a couple other things going on currently.
Yeah, but they're doing a lot of big school districts within our within Texas.
Yes.
And the first one does a lot of itty bitty.
Well,
ones.
HISD's on there too, and
Yeah.
that didn't last very long.
No.
You know,
Who's
they only
doing
did one in
HISD?
20, one in 19, one in 18. I mean, it's not like they're very connected, very engaged.
Which one was that?
The last one.
The line, okay, gotcha.
And, you know, that, to me, that's a little concerning. Technology being what it is in the world we're living in right now, it was a little disappointing that he couldn't operate PowerPoint. I don't know, it just, I started counting the U's.
What did you said you had called Joy for references. What kind of references did you get on this third one?
Really high marks. Or high, was it
As
high
far as
marks?
what, dependability,
Just
account-
overall, no critiques. Overall, the professionalism, how it was handled, the candidate, everything. that
were
we
these
discussed.
from Texas, as far
This
as the
is-
references, or from out of state?
This was a local.
Local? Because that's one thing I noticed in that little 15,000 students, as far as Texas and how many out of state. I mean, they really are out of state. Is there?
You're looking at the HYA?
Yeah, yes.
'Cause they have
The
a-
large schools, they take in Texas, but it looks like they favor a lot of the out-of-state Like he was saying, as far as their experience and being local, or how much do they really know about Texas?
Which page are you on?
3. Well, I just overlooked the small schools in general. New Jersey, Maine, Illinois, California, Washington.
And so you're looking at the references,
Yes.
and then,
I mean, it kind of reiterates what he was saying as far as how many schools have they really worked with here in Texas? What do they favor? They said Humble, Northwest.
well, I asked them about fast growth districts. That's what they were referring to, but in page 8, you have a whole bunch of them that were in Texas. Page 8 is all Texas.
Page 8?
Page 8 in the presentation that
And
we
the
got. It's-
presentation that they gave.
It's this presentation that was on the,
It's on your desk.
I guess I missed it.
It's this packet right here.
so the one I think you're
Okay.
looking at is the one we were emailed, and then this packet was on
Okay,
our desk tonight.
that's why I was, yay, Mealy, okay. I gotta dig further. Sorry.
And that's why they had this calendar too.
That's where the
I think-
calendar.
I think the
Duh.
paper-
Why didn't you knock me
Catherine,
upside the head and say here?
I can't see that
Catherine,
from.
I think the papers are hitting your microphone.
That's why you're
There we
making
go.
noise.
Okay, all right, I'll stand back on
Page
that.
8.
The one thing I liked about them as far as their calendar, I mean, they have it all ready to go. They planned ahead. It was like they knew what we needed to hear, and we're ready to go off. I liked the second one also because they were more local. Especially, we've got somebody here that's actually living in our district. It's kind of like we have 7 board members, but we have somebody else on the outside that has a concern for us. They have a lot to buy in, you know, a lot of investment with their family here.
That's true.
Somebody else, please.
I like the idea of the portal, but I also really like the idea of the second one with where they kind of videoed the different candidates. I kind of like knowing people before I have to meet them. You can tell a lot by it. So that's kind of what your problem was with that. I was having a hard time. I liked what they were saying, but I had a very hard time
You weren't engaged.
where they were engaging it. They would have been much better if they were standing here.
I'm trying not to hold that against them because we gave them a short time
Short
frame,
time, and I don't
so
want to,
I'm
that's
trying
why,
to-
I
yeah.
found things I really liked
Yeah.
about them, but I do like the idea that that if there's candidates that we're thinking about, that before we get too invested, we're having them answer some questions for us. I like that idea.
The video, you're saying.
I like that video idea.
That's with JG.
Yeah. But they're a young firm.
They are young.
They're a young firm, but that doesn't mean they're not hungry.
Being a young firm can really put them out there to put out 200%.
You're gonna have to have some reach.
Have to have what?
We're gonna have to, I mean, someone's gonna have to have some reach to get what we're gonna be looking for. It's not gonna be easy.
No, and once
Yeah,
we
it
start.
doesn't necessarily have to be from Texas, right?
Well, but that's gonna sit down when, they're the only ones that also said they would do a one-on-one interview with each one of us, which I kinda like too.
I think each of them would.
think it
They
does
would,
that.
'cause they didn't say that.
Well, after reading through these things, a lot of them are very similar. I think there's a couple things that
I
stand out.
thought they were
but
just gonna meet with us, but I didn't feel like.
I think each of them, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think each of them, that's common practice to meet with individual board members if that's our,
I honestly don't know the answer.
no, okay. I felt like I got that from reading through the proposals.
Okay,
On
one
the
of them,
third-
I didn't see it with one of them very well, but.
On the third one, I put down a one-on-one with the board members
Yeah.
If it, from the presentation, but from the proposals,
from what he had said.
yeah. The proposals are much more in-depth.
But I mean, once they do get what we're looking for, then they can kind of make that into, each one of them will make it into a packet. And then what they bring to us, well, if we're looking more for in-state or someone that's trying to get back here, you know, I don't know if feel comfortable
Yeah.
right now with somebody just walking in from another state, but that's just.
But I mean, it's something to consider now.
Yes.
These people are moving and everything. One thing, he mentioned it, no, I didn't hear it in the other two, was that he will not recruit from us until after the third year. He was the only one that
HYA
mentioned
said
that. It kind of shocked me that he would even say that.
This third firm?
Well, one of them said 2 years.
No, he said a guarantee
And
for
he-
2 years.
Yeah, it's in their
If they
writing.
leave,
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
would replace, or help us replace the
Right.
superintendent.
But-
But they never mentioned anything, this last one mentioned,
JG
we
did.
would recruit.
JG did.
JG did, they said they
After
wouldn't
3
recruit
years?
within 2 years. It's 2 years, it was 2 years for both, they wouldn't recruit away from us, and they would guarantee us that for 2 years. So it was.
said they
JG
would
said he's never
guarantee.
had to.
But
2
they
year,
also,
okay.
that they did say they wouldn't take us, I remember, because I did write that part down. I didn't hear
Mhm.
that from TASB's, but I heard it from JG, and then 3 years from HYA.
Yeah.
I don't know, we can always go back, I can't guarantee my memory is perfect, but I definitely remember, I wrote that down anyways.
I wrote it down a little bit differently, and I just put 2-year guarantee if the superintendent leaves. But on his, guarantee for 2 years, same thing, superintendent leaves, but we would be possibly recruiting after the 3rd
Yeah,
year.
I thought JG said that they would, if they placed our superintendent.
They're not
They
coming back.
would not, no, they would not recruit him away.
That's the
Right,
second
that's what I'm
reason.
saying, yeah, that's what I wrote down as well.
That he wouldn't recruit away. That didn't mean that they wouldn't come looking, but he wouldn't come looking for them.
Correct.
I took
Well,
that.
I'd like to speak about, this isn't necessarily my favorite one, but TASB at the beginning. I just want to give some kudos to them because I didn't realize they provided this kind of service until I saw it in the email from Mr. Morris. But they really have their ear to the ground all over the state. And she talked about the sister networks throughout the U.S. So I don't think that we should discount them either. I mean, they have their hands and their fingers in every part of public education in this whole region, you know, from the top to the bottom, east to the west. So I think that, you know, they might have some ways to finding people and recruiting folks that are very happy where they are, but want to jump at an opportunity to come to a district like this. So
The only thing, I'd gone to some of their training for superintendent when I first
TASB?
got on the board, yeah. You know, on what you're gonna have to do, and it was like, I don't have to worry about that. And, the only thing on.
Give us a heads up.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Randall.
So are you?
What I have, the only notes that basically I had for TASB, I like them. They're friendly and warm. But for some reason, I had put up here, small schools.
Lots of small districts.
I didn't see any experience in large schools that are becoming larger. And that's the only thing that it kind of slowed me down on considering them.
Well,
Personally, I like them.
She referenced that too, and then she said that their niche is small and mid-sized districts. And then she also said that a lot of the larger districts feel that they have to go out of the state in order to find a search firm, but she didn't feel like that was necessary. So
Yeah.
it seems like maybe they're trying to break that mold a little bit.
It's like trying to get a job with no experience, and you're like, come on, someone just give me the break, and maybe we would be that break for them.
I did try to call the reference because it's the closest number, and then it didn't pan out, and so I did attempt to try to get somebody that was closest to our number, you know. I think it was around, it was still probably 2/3 of our size, but it was the closest one to our size. And they were.
So if I understand right, the TASB fee is $18,500, and the second firm's fee is $25,000, all inclusive. I'm not sure if the 18.5, what that means exactly as far as TASB. And I'm not really clear on what the third firm's fee would be, because I understand the wording that they put in their presentation, but is that equivalent to the TASB proposal, or is that equivalent to the?
I think it's $35,750 plus, because like they're in the presentation, or maybe it was in their proposal, they had like an additional like a la carte items, like the executive background checks, or it's, you know, there's like two different options. One of them was like 1,100 for each candidate. It sounded like it was for each candidate. And then they have the transition services and all that. So it's going to be at least $35,000.
And I felt like the other two were starting the background checks much sooner. Didn't you? That they're not doing the real big background checks till we narrow it down to
Yeah,
the
because those
top
things get
six.
expensive.
Yeah.
They get
Well, plus you
expensive, so
have to
they're.
ask the candidates if they're willing to do that. I
Right.
think it's, unless it's really appropriate, I wouldn't think they would. I think for that too, I think it would be interesting because of the ratings that we received. The HYA, I don't know how much we talk about the rating chart out here, but they seem to be average. And so I guess it's hard because we don't see apples to apples. If, like the HYA said they would price match, but we don't see exactly, between the presentations, they list out the same information but in different ways, so it's hard to tell exactly what we're getting. I know that like the JG said that they would throw in for free, or Mr. Fraley said he would throw in for free on their dime the transition services, and then HYAs would be optional.
Unless we
But
negotiate
obviously
it
with their
ahead of
portal,
time.
I guess maybe that adds to the expenses, but maybe that's an added benefit that we don't know that we, so it's hard to see when it's not apples to apples.
But is that something we could, if we think we really want that and we wanted them, could we negotiate something with them?
Yes, you could. And President Williams, you're free to discuss the scoring matrix of the conduct scores. That was done by the administration, but you're not bound by any of those. Those were just used to narrow down the finalists, but they might be informative to you. That's just up to you. But yes, additional services can be negotiated under their contracts. I think that the price differentials that you'll see ultimately come down to the level of community engagement, because community engagement takes a great deal of time. So it might be difficult to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, because ultimately you don't know what the level of community engagement will be, I don't think, until you sit down with your selected search firm and you provide some information to them. You may have heard one or more of them say that you identify some stakeholder groups, and then that will help inform the scope of the community engagement. And so that can be a real differential in terms of pricing, I think. At the end of the day, what I would share with you is, if it's the right search firm for you that helps find your next superintendent for a district of your size, I wouldn't let relatively small differences in price be the deciding factor for you. It's just my recommendation.
So how does the timeline work? Because a lot of the firms discuss very briefly the differences in the community engagement, and their typical answer was, well, we need to come to you and figure out what y'all want to do. And we'll kind of work that into our all-inclusive model. But if we ask them to do something that's fairly minimal and ask them to do something that's a lot, I would imagine that would impact their bottom line. And I can't see them doing an all-inclusive fee, and there's this huge disparity in terms of what we're doing for community engagement. So do we have that discussion about what community engagement we want, and then they're going to come back with a new proposal?
I doubt it. I think that most of them give you pricing based on what they think is a certain level of community engagement that should be satisfactory to help you develop the profile of the candidate that you want and that they then advertise. If you want less community engagement, my guess is they're not going to discount their all-inclusive fee because you've chosen less community engagement. If you ask for something that is really outside the norm, though, in terms of level of community engagement that they really have not thought about or allocated for, then they might come back and tell you that, look, you're asking us to do something extraordinary and we may need to reconsider our pricing. But I think that's unlikely. I think that for a district of your size, certain of these firms that are used to working with larger districts, they're used to providing a high level of community engagement.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to bring up on the third one, on page 4, when you're talking about this, it says in the engage phase, it says a customized survey is $5,000 plus translation at $415 per language. So they, whatever they consider a regular survey versus a customized survey, they do charge extra for it. I mean, it's
Where are you?
on page 4 of, I ran it off, I don't know if y'all,
I
This
didn't.
one?
the actual proposal.
Thank you.
So being that we're a bilingual district, would you want?
I just didn't see it in any of the other proposals, you know, they break it down pretty explicit, this last group. And it's kind of like, I'm finding out, going out to eat. You used to could ask for a lemon, a slice of lemon. Well, now you can have that slice of lemon, but it's 19 cents. Pickle, okay.
It's like a glass.
That's kind of like what I look at this. That you can have this, but it's gonna cost you extra. They seem to be putting it out there.
But if we knew we were gonna need something in bilingual because of the type of district we have, that could be something we
Would
negotiate.
they consider that as a customized survey?
I'm assuming if they're seeking translation services, that is something that they would probably have to hire somebody to perform the translation of the survey. If it's a custom survey, perhaps if they have a standard survey, they've already translated it, because then they can broadcast that out. But if
I think we had specific questions.
They probably have to come out of pocket to hire somebody to do that, and then passing that cost along.
I guess what I'm saying is, they spelled it out, and in the second proposal, I didn't see anything spelled out, $25,000, and you get everything inclusive. I guess I should have,
It's hard to know.
yeah,
Because again, it's very difficult to compare what the scope of community engagement is. Frankly, there's not enough time, I think, in these presentations to allow you to compare that in an exact apples to apples, oranges to oranges way.
And so some of that is based off of what the administration, has the work they've done coming into tonight.
Well, some of it is based on their review of the proposals, yes.
Right, so they've gone over it, yes, yeah.
I mean, it used to be, if you paid more money, it was a better company. You'd always look for the cheapest. Can't do that with this. The money is just,
Unless you buy the brand name, and sometimes the second level is just as good or better. It just doesn't have the same
it all goes
reputation.
back to their presentations. And when Mr., is it Fraley?
Yes.
I mean, he kind of bought me when he said, I live here, and my kids are going to these schools, and, I just looked at him as an asset, that he would be on our side to want the best for us.
It's good marketing.
That's why he was brought here.
I know.
Well, I know that's why he was brought here.
It worked.
It worked on me.
For Ms. Kaminsky.
It wasn't a coincidence.
No, but
And they prepared what to say.
Yeah, I mean, it really got down to being very personal, but at the same time,
You want to say, okay, do you?
that
want to-
helped.
Yes, it didn't hurt, right?
It didn't hurt. I did like the last one when he was so organized, and he had the dates, and this is what's gonna get done, this is I wrote it all, and I liked the interview workshop. I didn't hear that from the other group, that they would kind of meet with us first and give us the interview, the do's and don'ts,
Mhm.
and the script. Maybe this second group could do that, we could ask them. But I know it's important to make sure you ask all the same questions to the same people.
We've been in a lot of those.
Yeah.
Exactly what we talked
And looking at, the different categories that were scored, I think looking to see what we find the most value in out of the different categories, and the point differences, I think, too, helps, and then adding the presentations in and some of the uniqueness out of the different presentations, I think, altogether. And so we're going to score
You're gonna
this
rank
evening,
them. So
rank them this evening.
You're gonna rank them in your
Or
order of
by tomorrow.
preference. And so it's going to work much like a golf score. know, the more somebody receives number ones, I'll tally those up and try to hopefully come to one firm. Hopefully they're not a tie, because if there's a tie, then we've got to figure out a way to break the tie. But yes, you will rank them in order of preference and send them to me, and then I will let everybody know what the tally is. And the goal would be on Thursday night, if we can get the contract negotiated by Thursday night, then you will approve the selection of the search firm as well as approve the contract. If we can't get the contract finalized by that time, I'm going to be asking that you approve a motion that grants the authority to finalize the contract either with President Williams or with Dr. Randall, your preference, President Williams. Because as you can see, based on the timeline I've given you and the last timeline that you saw, time is already short. They need to hit the ground running, and what we don't want to do is delay getting the contract in place, because then we've got to bring you back to another meeting just to get that done. And given that the holidays are already upon us, we'd really like to get this up and moving.
And I think we also need to consider, we've got, our neighbors are gonna be looking right now too.
They will. The good news
So-
is that Dr. Dupree is going to be there through the end of the calendar year. So
That's right.
I'm hoping that most of your heavy lifting will be done before they might
Start theirs.
start their process.
Okay, so that ideally we'll get these to you this evening or by morning. What, you want to set a kind of
I'd like to try to get them by noon, because then once we know, I'll visit with Dr. Randall, and we'll pull out the contract for the firm that you select, and we'll work on trying to get that contract finalized for your consideration on Thursday.
All right.
Very well.
So let's see. Do we have any questions on the information items, or we already did that? I can't
Can I go
remember.
back, can I go back to asking Mr. Hubenek a question before we?
We're all done. Ask Mr. Hubenak?
Yes.
I think so.
I just want to, I want to hear a few more comments from him about the differences that he saw.
This is a meeting in public, and not a public meeting, so
Huh?
go ahead, Joe.
What you were concerned right off the bat about the technology and the way it was presented, but you have any?
So, I'm actually going through interviews, not me personally, but I'm conducting interviews with individuals currently, my other job. So sitting in presentations, sitting in presentations and interviews is kind of what I've been doing and will be doing for the next 2 days, which is great, all day today, then all night tonight.
I think we're ready to go, is what I'm saying.
So I put a lot into the presentation. I mean, we had all the information. I had a little bit. I got the rest of it, not all, but I feel pretty confident in my choice. But that said, the presentation that was given them a little, two in person, one virtual, and giving them a little bit of leniency, being that they were notified Friday night. It's Tuesday evening. It just seemed that it could have been a little bit more put together for what they're the most expensive one out of the three, plus all the a la carte items that could be added for additional fees, which would probably end up, or I would guess, maybe close to 45,000, 50,000, easy. It could have been a little bit more put together and presentable. That as a team, they didn't, if they worked together so often, so regular, they didn't seem to know who was going to be presenting what in what order. They do very few. They had one in 2020, one in 2019, two in 2018, something like that. To me, I look at that as, understandably, this is their second career. They've already retired from a full professional life. But that said, even charging $50,000 a year divided between the three of them after expenses, portion of that going to their firm. It doesn't leave them with a whole lot. Doing one a year, from a professional standpoint, how much money, how much time, how much effort is going to be put into that with what they're receiving in return. I don't know. The second one kind of won me over. I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it. He's obviously a lot more engaged. He's a lot younger, I think, than either of any of the three. I think he's got the right people on his team. Obviously, he made a pretty good impression with this team member tonight, and I mean that was a good card to pull. Obviously, somebody that's local, just literally across the street, so to speak, from a neighboring district, that lives in our district, and is, as he stated, he's trying to talk his family into that his daughter is building in Cross Creek, and trying to, I guess, talk somebody else into moving closer as well. But all that said, I just felt that they were a lot more organized. They've got a lot more going on. He's national. It's a team of 30, which is relatively small, as he said, for being a national team. But he's from Austin. He seemed to be a lot more involved with the other associations associated with education. They offer other services associated with education. He's currently looking for superintendents for other districts in and out of state, which means he's got a lot of people engaged in his, as he said, he posted on social media, and he had some replies right away. I'm sure he's got people looking at his website on a regular basis that are interested. But, the person that we may be looking for, maybe somebody that he goes out and finds. It's hard to say. Maybe somebody that's extremely local that we just aren't aware of. But I don't know. It just, to me, it seemed that they would be it's very cut and dry for me. Relatively easy decision.
Joy, can I ask your comment, or how do you feel? In general, is that proper?
I don't know if that would be.
Is that proper to ask her opinions?
Is it
as
proper?
President?
You can ask for another trustee's opinion, but they're not obligated.
Okay, well, I respect that.
I mean, honestly, like I was saying earlier, I read through the proposals, I made some, calls to the references, and so I feel like and I wanted to hear the presentations. Like I said, I'm trying not to, I know the Zooming factor, and we didn't give them a lot of time, so I'm really trying to take that out of the equation, honestly. I like that they've worked with a lot of big local firms. They got really high ratings from the research that the administration did. I found like, with some of the ratings, like I said, some of the numbers, there's quite a jump between the different ratings. I like that they have the portal, and they got a really good reference. And so TASB, we do a lot with TASB, and so I give them credibility on that. I find that they have worked with a lot of smaller districts, and so whether breaking in is their goal or not, I found with our particular situation that we are so fast, growing so fast, and them not having a lot of experience. I don't know, they have positives and negatives with me, and I was not able to, when I called for the reference, they said, no, that person hasn't been available to do that for a while. And so I was a little, so I didn't get that, I didn't get a personal reference discussion on them. And so then for the JG, I mean, I thought he had a great presentation. Like you said, the marketing skills are definitely there. And so they don't have as much fast growth experience. And so a couple things that I was looking for. So it's kind of, like I said, I'm going to take all the presentations. I'm going to look through these one more time and kind of look at the scoring matrix that the administration did, because I know they delved deeper into the proposals.
And I took that list of Texas districts that the last one did, that they just listed the ones they did in Texas. We don't know what they've done outside of Texas because they're not a Texas firm, correct?
They are a national firm, but I think what you were saying was the team that does the Texas.
Okay, so there's other teams that are working in other,
Yes.
okay, so this was only stuff that this specific team has been doing within Texas. They only work Texas.
That's right.
Okay.
So it's an Illinois-based
Okay.
firm, national
Okay.
firm.
Okay.
And they specialize in districts of a certain size by enrollment. So they don't do small school districts. They try to get districts of larger size, and they do that now. But that team, they were showing you what that team does in Texas.
When you said about the large schools, a second group, I've had a note here that they did two
It's
schools
JG.
at 80,000 and 64,000 population. It may not be a fast-growing school district, but it was large districts.
Right, and
So
those
kind
are
of-
also out of state, correct? And
No,
don't
I
think-
had Austin.
Austin.
I had it on page
Austin
9.
ISD.
Hold on,
They
let me-
just
let me-
did-
let me
they
find
just
my-
finished Austin.
I'm all out of sorts now.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't basing my opinion on dollars spent or what it was gonna cost us. I
Yeah.
think if we can spend 50,000 and get a superintendent that stays 20 years, I think it'd be money well spent. I just don't know if it's possible.
And I think to that point, that some of them listed the extras and some of them didn't, right? And so I think, I think that there's obviously extra services, like he said he would throw that one in, but, so they have other things, they may just not be listed here, so we're not physically, being able to visually see it.
Sure, you can change your mind.
Or you might want to go work for one of these firms now.
So, again, I think it's kind of out of the matrix, and, like I said, I like the video aspect of JG as well. So there's different.
Everybody has their little yeses and
You
yes.
know, and so I think there's a lot of commonalities between the proposals that they're gonna do. They're gonna eventually come up with a calendar for us, and do a lot of the similar outreach.
So if the second one was chosen, that would be one of the negotiations that we would like to have, the portal, or we'd like to see what they could get us something.
Well, so JG is second. So JG has the videos that they do that.
They do the videos.
The portal is the HYA. They have their own software that we
But
can
if
go
we'd
in.
ask, if the second group did get it, would that be something we would ask could you add that to your package?
It sounds like that portal was custom to HYA, if I understood that. So I don't think
You
that's
get a binder.
Well,
And that would be just available to us
Do I-
board
a
members,
binder?
just to see where
with
they're
every
at.
applicant.
I'm assuming everybody would give us a binder. Well, one of
You
them
might-
said they're all electronic.
You might, as you go
Tasman.
back and you're doing your studying, because they talked about a website where you could go and all of the information is there.
This
So,
was
the
JG?
second one, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay.
each one of them probably has something. It may not be exactly the same, but if you go back and look at your material, some of those things will probably jump out at you.
He did talk about the website, okay.
But we don't have to, we have until noon tomorrow to deliberate on it.
I have
so.
my mind made up, so.
14 hours,
Well-
14 hours to make your decision.
Uh,
Turn it
okay.
into
So we'll get some sleep in the meantime. and
That's
then-
good,
and
that's
then-
right.
I can't put any more numbers in my head.
Took a lot of notes to be plotted out. Just saying.
Okay, so we're not going into closed session, so it is now, my computer is gone. 9:56, and we're adjourning to, nope, if we have no further business, meeting is adjourned as 9:56. Thank you.